Hey guys, this is the WalterFootball.com After Dark show for April 11, 2025. We're going to do a 2025 NFL mock draft review on the show tonight. Also going to look at some odds, going to discuss those and turn those into a mock draft. So that's going to be fun. So before we get into all that, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. As always, I'm wearing something from the merch store. It is a light blue Walter football shirt, part of our winter collection. And our guest here is showing a green Walter football shirt, which I think is what, spring, summer collection. I don't know. I'm just making this stuff up. So we can get this. You can get this at the merch store here. There is no 25% off right now, which you usually see. So I would actually recommend just waiting. Actually, it's just probably not a good way to sell stuff, but I think that you guys should probably wait till you get a good deal on this. Actually, the apron's 30% off. So you can, if you want it now, you can go in, you can change the colors. You can, there's so many designs here. There are mugs as well. So everything is available here. Buying stuff would help us out. Also, you can go to Amazon, buy my books. The most recent one is Jerks to the College Years, where I made fun of people I saw at Penn State for 6 years. I went to school at Penn State for 6 years, and I had a lot of fun making fun of people and writing about it, and I think you guys would enjoy reading it. Also, please consider super chats, super stickers. That's the best way to support the show. You guys have been so great with your contributions over basically the years with Slew, John Sanders, DeGenon, Ken McNeagle, RMac, the boss, you guys, Carmick, you guys have been so awesome. I can't say it enough. So YouTube ads pays nothing. So that's the best way to help us. All right, we are joined by Ben Wassley tonight from FFDFantasyFootball.com. Ben, how's it going?
Look, it's good to be here on a day when 3 Aussies are in the top 11 at the Masters. It's a good day to be Australian. I'm just saying.
That's great. Yeah, I didn't tell you this. I don't know if you saw it on my site, but I bet Minwoo Lee to win the Houston Open 2 weeks ago, and he did. Although it was pretty tense down the stretch when he hit the ball into the water on 16. It was on 16, and I had major PTSD because the week before I had bet Justin Thomas to win at 20-1. He was up 3 strokes with 3 holes to go, and he just blew it. He hit the ball into the stand, into the crowd, and then hit the ball into the bunker, and he just blew it. And then Minwoo Lee up 3 strokes with 3 holes to go, he hit the ball into the water. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening here again? But we had a better number of Minwoo Lee, and he won, so that was great. So unfortunately I did not bet any Aussies this time, so I'm not for once I'm not rooting for one of your compatriots. But I did bet Scotty Scheffler, and he's tied for second right now. We'll see what Justin Rose does. He had a great round 1. It was incredible. But so before we get started, we had a question about Australia, which you guys, I recommend you guys do. So we usually don't have an Australian guest. This is a rare opportunity to ask questions about Australia. Sue asking Ben, do the universities in Australia offer jogging classes? And there is something behind this, but first answer the question. Yeah.
I mean, look, not for credit, but you can definitely find a jogging class if you really need one. Every university has a gym attached. Go there. You can get a jogging class, but you aren't going to get graded on it. Thankfully for me, my jogging technique is awful.
No, mine is awful as well. Even though I did take jogging classes, is what the question is referring to. In my book, I wrote about it. My final semester. So you needed 2 physical education classes. So I took basketball for my first one, which was fun. Except for my teacher was a jerk, but that's a different story. The second one, I took a jogging class, and so I'm fast in the water. I'm a good swimmer, but I was very slow on land, and it was just awful. But what they did was they split us into groups. So I ran with this group of 4 or 5 people, and after about 3 weeks, we just came to the realization, we're like, wait a second, no one's watching us. They're telling us to just jog around campus and come back. We're like, why don't we just sit in a cafe and wait until the class is over and we could sign out? And so that's what we did. We would meet up at the beginning of class to sign in, go to a cafe, and then sign out after about an hour. The class was an hour 15, so that's what we did. And then about 3 weeks later, we came to the realization saying, wait a second, we don't have to even be together. We could just go sign in, go back to sleep, come back, and sign out. And so that's what we did the whole time. So that was my jogging class. It was pretty great.
Amazing. But look what happened to your jogging technique as a result. If you'd really committed to that, you would be an expert jogger by now.
Mate, I don't know. My last name, so my last name is Charpinski. In Russian, that means turtle man. So I don't know. I think my ancestors might have been fast in the water like I was, and also slow on land. I think there's something to that.
Meant to be.
Titan saying, "Look out, Ben, an emu." Just kidding. I like it. Just said, "Just kidding." Like there's actually like an emu in the background.
I mean, you never know. I am on the 4th floor of a building, but if I was on the ground floor, it's always a risk.
Is it? I don't know if you're joking or not. I have no idea.
I mean, look, you do see them in the wild, but not really in the cities. But there's always rainforest somewhere within 5 meters walk. There'll be an emu in there somewhere. It'll happen.
Nice. That's funny. All right. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions about Australia, keep them coming. But we're going to jump into well, let me just say this first. We're going to do Ben's mock draft. So he has this mock draft. We're going to review it, and then Ben's compiled basically a mock draft using odds. I don't know if you want to intro that, but basically I just got a quick look at it. Like you list the odds and like you made a mock draft just based on those odds. Is that like a correct description of it?
Yeah, I basically tried to think, what do the bookies think is most likely to happen? And that's not an easy thing to do because, for example, there are no teams that are likely, according to bookmakers, to get a safety or a linebacker, and yet we know that a couple of safeties and linebackers will go in the first round. So there's a little bit of like wiggling, try to kind of work in all the correct players. But basically, it's using the bookies' odds to predict what's going to happen was my goal, and that's kind of what happened. So you'll have to wait and see what that looks like, but I'll go through it when we get there.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, yeah, we'll start with your mock draft, your 4.0 mock draft. So you have Cam Ward going to the Titans, number 1 overall. Feels like this is pretty much set in stone. They canceled the other workouts with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and seems like they're going to take Cam Ward after speculation that they might trade out or take someone else. So pretty confident this is going to happen, right?
Yeah, 100%. This is basically not a conversation now. I mean, obviously teams aren't allowed to announce anymore what their first pick was going to be, but if they were, I think the Titans would just come out and say, yeah, it's Cam Ward.
Yeah, back in the day, it would be like, okay, the Browns are on the clock, basically. They used to do that all the time, and the TV networks are like, oh, no, don't do that anymore. We need like, because you're going to see like at like 3 o'clock on draft day, they're like, are the Titans really going to pass on Cam Ward? Like you can see that on ESPN, and of course they're not going to do it. All right, so number 2, you have the Browns taking Abdul Carter. I feel like this is either Carter or Travis Hunter. You have that here on the alternatives.
So wait a second. I just realized I have an updated version we can actually go into.
Okay. I mean, if you want to send that over, that's fine. We had a question as you do that. Titans says it sucks the QB class is bad when the Titans have the first pick. Well, I mean, Cam Ward could be a good player. He's not. This is not the class from last year. Like certainly not. And this doesn't look like it's going to be the class from next year either. But you never know. Like Arch Manning may not come out. Right, so we have here. So let's see here. Okay. So yeah. Okay, you changed the pick. So before we get to that, yeah, I mean, Arch Manning may not come out. Grant Nussmeier is probably the QB2 at this point. But what if he has a down year and suddenly next year's class is not looking great either? So it's pretty rare to have a class like we did in 2024. So you can't always count on that, but it's not like this class is in 2022 either with Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis. Although Willis looked good last year in a few games, but so this is better. This is definitely somewhere in between that and last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, totally agree. So what's happening here? Basically, we've heard in the last kind of 3 or 4 days in particular that Travis Hunter is looking increasingly likely to go to the Browns. So I made the adjustment here just so it was as up to date as possible. Most of the rest of the picks are still pretty much the same as they were 3 or 4 days ago, but I wanted to make sure at least this part of the draft was up to date for the show.
Do you think that's the correct pick? Like, would you have taken Hunter, or would you have taken Carter or Sanders? If you were in charge of the Browns, what would you do?
I think it's weird because we're seeing a lot of talk that the Browns view Hunter as a wide receiver. And there's not many situations where you'd consider it the correct pick to take a wide receiver second overall. I mean, when was the last time we saw a wide receiver taken in the first 2 picks? Like, it's really something that doesn't happen very often. And I do recognize that Hunter does offer a little bit more than just being a wide receiver. But I think it's something that's worth considering, that this doesn't really fully make sense. I know it's kind of weak at the top of the class, and we need to consider this isn't really a true top 2 pick. But if it was me, I'd be putting Carter out there, putting him opposite Myles Garrett. And it doesn't matter what else is going on with your team. Your pass rush is going to be so strong that every team's going to have to work really hard to compensate for that all game. I think it's a mistake.
Yeah, so the last time that happened was Calvin Johnson in 2007, and I don't think Travis Hunter is Calvin Johnson. Like, he's unique in that he can play corner and receiver. He might be better as a corner. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens, but he's certainly definitely not Calvin Johnson. So, Keyshawn was the top pick. Like, he's not Keyshawn either. Like, he's definitely a tier below that. So. It is weird. I think I'd personally go with Abdul Carter, get like the great bookend, because we just saw what happened in the Super Bowl. Like, if you can rush the elite quarterbacks with 4 guys and not blitz, the Eagles didn't blitz a single time, then you can beat them. Like, you can shut down these great offenses with this great pass rush. So if you have Carter and Myles Garrett, like, suddenly your defense is one of the best, maybe one of the top 5 defenses in the NFL. And then you could try to find a quarterback elsewhere. We'll talk about what the Browns may do later on, but that's personally what I would do at this point if I were Cleveland. Titan says, will Xavier Restrepo be a good receiver even with a 40 time measured in geologic time? Well, once upon a time, there was this receiver. He ran a 4.71. You may have heard of him. His name's Jerry Rice. So I don't think that like 40 times mean all that much. I think it's overblown. Like, John Ross ran what, a 4.28, and he was terrible. So I wouldn't be discouraged. And plus, like, Restrepo is a slot receiver. I think that, the 40 time means less there. I'd be more concerned with his agility score rather than his speed score. What do you think about him before we move on?
I think in general, like, the majority of those sorts of metrics are overblown. What you see on tape doesn't always match up with what you see at the combine or at a pro day. A lot of players will be preparing specifically for the combine or their pro day. So what you're seeing in that situation isn't necessarily going to align with what you see for them when they're actually in playing shape. So I think any sort of thing like that is a little bit overblown. There are positions where you do want a little bit of speed. For example, you don't want an outside cornerback who's going to run a really slow 40, because they're just going to get blown by fast receivers. But in the case of a slot receiver, it doesn't matter that much as long as they can separate using their other skills.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we move on to number 3, which is Abdul Carter to the Giants. So far we're locked up 3 for 3 here. Yeah, so I mean, some people were speculating before they take Shorter Sanders. I know some Giant beat writers think that there's still a chance they take Sanders, but I'm pretty confident this is gonna be Carter. Is like, where are you like probability wise here? Is it 75-25 Carter versus Carter / Hunter versus Sanders, or is it 90-10, or like where do you stand?
For me, the odds of it being Sanders are very low now. I do think it's entirely possible that they come back into the late first round and take Sanders. I think some team is going to do that if Sanders starts to fall, or they come back late in the first round and take a Jackson Dart, for example. I do think quarterback's going to happen sometime around the second turn for the Giants. But I think this is really the logical choice. If they don't believe in Sanders, if they don't believe Sanders is the guy, then this is exactly what I would do if I were the Giants. The problem is, Abdul Carter doesn't really feel a need for them. It's not like they need another edge rusher. They've already got 2 excellent edge rushers. He potentially won't even be playing. He'll be more of a rotational guy. So the Browns taking Hunter, if anything, screws the Browns and the Giants. It's a really weird situation where, because of the Browns' choice to potentially select Hunter, all of a sudden 2 teams end up with a player that is significantly worse for them. So I find this a slightly weird choice, but I understand what they're doing, because there's not really another viable option they could take here instead of Carter without going with the Sanders.
Yeah, you know what? This maybe this reminds them of what they did back in, like, I think it was 2007 or so. They had Michael Strahan and Osi Umenyiora, like 2 of the best edge rushers in the NFL. And then they took Matthias Kiwanuka in the first round. And like, I remember at the time, like, they have 2 great edge rushers. Why are they doing this? And that helped them win the Super Bowl, because they had this great pass rush that just was so relentless. So maybe that's what they're thinking, and best player available. So it kind of makes sense for that perspective. But you're right. Like they don't really need an edge rush. Like that's like one of their few strengths. So it just feels like they're kind of spinning their tires at the same time. Like that Giants team had Eli Manning, and they had Plaxico Burress, and they had a really good offensive line. They had Tiki Barber. Like that team was stacked already. Like this Giants team only has Malik Neighbors on offense. I guess Tyron Tracy was solid last year, but they don't have a quarterback. Their offensive line, except for Andrew Thomas and a couple, maybe one other spot is pretty bad, and they just have a lot of work to do. So this is, even though this may remind them of that, possibly is like it's not going to help them win the Super Bowl next year.
You would just have to hope that what they're thinking. What you would have to think is that they're thinking, well, our target zone is like 3 or 4 years down the road, and this is the best pick for 3 or 4 years down the road, and they might be correct there. But if that's what they're thinking, then why did they go and get the guys that they got within the last 12 months? It doesn't really make any sense. So I really hope that they are thinking, well, we're thinking 3 or 4 years down the road, but that doesn't really align with all of their other actions.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird if they're thinking 3 or 4 years down the road, because they're like the GM's on the hot seat. So like you could be fired in 3 to 4 months instead of 3 to 4 years. So it's very strange. I don't know what the Giants are doing, but as our Wednesday co-host Kenny would say, it makes me happy to see the Giants suffer. Matthias says GM should be fired to take a quarterback at any point. Should already be fired. I feel like they need to take a quarterback. They have two. Well, they have a really old Russell Wilson, and they have an erratic Jameis Winston. Like they don't have anything else unless you believe in Tommy DeVito, which I don't. So, second round, as Ben said, like trade up into the end of the first round. Maybe second round you take. If Sanders falls, you take him there. Maybe trade up for him. Jackson Dart, Jalen Milrow. It feels like they should take one of those guys and see what happens. And if that doesn't pan out, then there's no issue. I mean, the Cardinals took Josh Rosen 10th overall, and then they took a quarterback number 1 overall. Like you can do it. It's you're not really hurt by it these days with the rookie contrast. So, yeah. Anyway, so we have the 4th pick, Will Campbell. So we were 4 for 4 in agreements here. This feels like a Patriots pick, a Mike Vrabel pick, like address the offensive line, run the ball. Maybe Patriots think this is boring, but Patriots offensive line was so bad last year, so this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just feel like it's the play they most commonly get linked to. I don't know that it's necessarily the best choice. I think it's probably a very safe choice. And I feel like with where the Patriots are and with their need to protect Drake May and continue building for the future, it does make sense to go safe and get a guy that they know is definitely going to perform. He might not be an elite tackle, but he's at least going to be a good, consistent player that can stop Drake May from getting injured and allow him to continue developing over the next couple of years. That's a logical choice. I know a lot of people want to give him Membu, for example, and I know that's really exciting, but there's so much risk there, and it doesn't really make sense. Regardless of what happens, we know that the Patriots are generally just going to take the player that they like best. It doesn't matter where they see the value as. It doesn't matter where other teams think the value lies. It just matters who they think's the best player, and they seem to think among the available players that's Campbell, so I'm going with that.
It's funny is like Campbell's arms were 32 and 5/8. Like if they were just 33, I don't think anyone would question this. They're like, oh, it's less than 33 inches, he's gonna suck. But like, I don't know, Michael Roos was good. Jake Matthews, I think, had shorter arms. Like they were both very good tackles. I don't really see an issue there. All right, number 5, Mason Graham to the Jaguars. So we finally depart here. I have them taking Armand Membu. But I mean, Mason Graham makes a lot of sense too. They haven't had great defensive tackle play since Calais Campbell left. So this would really help. And you have to beat CJ Stroud, and this is the best way to do it. As I said, you have to rush the passer with 4 guys. So it looks like you have some other possibilities there too. So why Mason Graham?
I just think it's the greatest need for them. They're really weak on the interior of the defensive line. I know they do also need some O-line help as well, but I feel like this is a greater need. I feel like Graham belongs in this range as well. The bookies agree. He's a well over a 50% chance of going here, according to the bookies. And I kind of trust their takes when they have someone as a heavy favorite. It generally means there's a lot to it. So that's why I'm going with Graham here.
Okay. We had Rob says that picture is not Mason Graham. Let's see, had a major suntan that we don't know about, but that's okay. It's kind of grand, I think. So that's pretty funny. Anyway, so pick number 6, Ashton Genty. So this is really interesting. I have trouble figuring out where Genty's going to go, because I feel like it's the Raiders, Bears, or Cowboys. I think at this point, there may be a surprising like the back of my head, like I'm thinking like maybe the Saints because Kamara's so old. But so why Genty to the Raiders? I mean, they could. I hadn't taken Will Johnson, but like I think Genty is a very strong possibility. So like, why'd you decide to have Genty here?
I just don't feel like teams are really valuing Will Johnson as much as maybe some of the rest of the community is. There seems to be this general feel that Johnson belongs a little bit lower in the draft, and I feel like this is a little bit early for him to be taken. Whereas Genty, he is elite both in the run game and the pass game. I feel like he opens up the Raiders a little bit. That gives them that thing they've been lacking ever since Josh Jacobs left, which is a proper elite running back that they can kind of structure their offense around. You don't really want to be relying on Geno Smith if you're the Raiders. You need to have a proper run game, and your offense is never going to go anywhere. So I feel like by bringing in Genty, they give themselves not only an outlet for Smith to pass to on every down, but also a player who's going to have to be schemed for by the opposition defense. Plus, 3-4 years down the track where they're actually good, he's still going to be able to be someone that can produce for them.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about safe picks. I think this is definitely a safe pick for the Raiders. They had nothing in the running game. Raheem Mostert is slated to be the starter, which seems like a disaster. Pina says that someone could trade for 5 to get Genty ahead of the Raiders. Do you see that happening? I mean, maybe the Jaguars move down. I mean, if the Bears or Cowboys love him enough, maybe them. Do you see anyone else? As I said, like maybe Saints. I don't know about that, but
I don't know that really makes sense. If anything, I think you're more likely to go to 4 because I feel like the Patriots have more chance of being able to get a guy that they want later on in the draft. I feel like for the Jaguars, they're kind of in the right spot for the players they want. Like I think it's Mason Graham, but even if it's not, I don't know that trading back's going to open up the same options as it would if they stayed and picked where they are. Whereas with the Patriots would happily move down. And there's a good chance Will Campbell's still going to be available, even if they go down into the 8, 9, 10 region. So I feel like that's a more likely outcome. Having said that, that's a long way to go up to get a running back.
Yeah. What about do you think the Jaguars could take Genty? Like they have ATN's kind of been a bust. Bigsby's shown some flashes, but it seemed like, I mean, it was a different coaching staff last year. It didn't seem like they really didn't want to commit to him. And we just don't know what Liam Cohen thinks about these guys. So I don't know. I think it could happen. What do you think about that?
I think it's possible, but very unlikely. I think they're kind of a little bit better set up to have a strong passing game. They at least have a quarterback who we know can move the ball and be relied on a little bit compared to a Geno Smith. So they don't need a running back to really rely on as much as the Raiders do. I just don't think it's what they're aiming to do in general.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I just think, I think it is a possibility, but I think it's pretty low. All right, number 7, you have Armand Membu going to the Jets, which Charlie had in his previous mock draft. He moved Membu up to 5 to Jacksonville. So what my one, and I think the Membu could definitely be the pick here, but my one issue here for the Jets, and like maybe they'll ignore it, but like they just drafted a tackle in the first round last year. And so when these contracts come to expire, they're going to have to re-sign both tackles, which they could do. I mean, they don't really have anything at right tackle right now. But that was the only, that was like when I was like considering putting Membu here, I'm like, I don't know if they're going to do that, but I mean, they could. So you have other possibilities too: Tyler Warren, Will Campbell, Shador Sanders. I have Mason Graham here falling to 7. So. Yeah, I mean, Membu just looks great. He like the measurables he put out at the combine. If you look at just athleticism and wingspan, like there's been only 2 tackles in the past who've had those measurements, and they were Trent Williams and Tristan Wirfs. So pretty good company, right? It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is the type of pick that you would expect the Jets to make. I think it makes a lot more sense for them to want to select Membu than it does for someone like the Patriots, who kind of tend to go in a different direction. So I do think that Membu's most likely pick here. If he's gone though, and he could easily go to the Jaguars, then I think this is probably where Mason Graham ends up as you've got it. I would happily have those two in either direction. I just think this is the most likely way it falls, but they could easily be swapped.
Yeah, that's how I have it in my mock. Pollyanna says Jets will draft Warren. They won't make the same mistake as last year. I find that very strange, right? Because they passed on Bowers at 11 when Bowers is a better prospect than Warren, and so they're going to take Warren at 7, like 4 picks earlier. And I know this draft class isn't as strong, but still, it just seems like it feels like overcompensation for a mistake. I wouldn't hate the pick, but at the same time, I don't know. I think there is better prospects than Tyler Warren at 7. If they trade down, then yeah, that'd be great. But at 7 just seems like a little too early for me. But could happen.
I agree. I think it's possible. I don't like it. I don't think it makes any sense to do that. I do know they need pass catching options, but I just don't think that Warren is that good. I think we see Bowers and we go, oh, all early tight ends are amazing, because we've seen Bowers, we've seen like the guys the year before, there were 3 of them that were very solid. So we've seen tight ends go early in the draft and they've produced, but 3 or 4 years ago, you would never think about a top 10 tight end and think that was a viable option. It was very rare to have a top 10 tight end actually consistently produce. This is a very new phenomenon, and I think we're a little bit too attached to the outcome of one guy producing and succeeding.
It's pretty remarkable, because you had Kyle Pitts at 4, and then he, outside of his rookie year, he was a bust. And then the Jets were like, oh, we can't take a tight end early. And then 1 year after Bowers, it's like, oh, we have to take a tight end early. It just seems like just make up your minds. Like, either you don't take a tight end early or you do. I don't know. It's pretty wild. John says new regime with the Jets, so I don't think they worry about past mistakes. That's true. I agree with that. All right. So pick number 8, you had the Panthers taking Jalen Walker. You, Charlie, and I all have the same pick here. I was like wondering, like Michael Williams maybe, but it sounds like Jalen Walker has kind of jumped ahead of those guys. So yeah, I mean, I think that they have no edge rush. Like, they had the worst pass rush in the NFL last year, so this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's been a heap of buzz around Walker being the second edge guy, even though, according to bookies and a lot of people, he's technically classified as a linebacker. Let's face it, he's an edge rusher. A lot of people considering him to be the second edge rusher off the board after Carter, and it makes sense. He's got a heap of upside. I actually personally really like Williams. I feel like he's a slightly safer pick, but I understand why the Panthers would do this, and they're in a position where they can afford to go for the upside guy. So it could be Walker, it could be Williams, heck, it could be Shamar Stewart if they do something crazy. But I think that Walker is the most likely outcome by a long way.
Yeah, I think that's true at the moment. All right, 9, Saints taking Will Johnson. So that was we just kind of I had Will Johnson 6, so you have him 9. So we both have him in the top 10. It makes sense. I mean, they lost Marshawn Lattimore, and that wasn't the only cornerback they lost. They lost another starter as well this offseason. So, I mean, it fits a big need for them. So, yeah, I think Will Johnson is going to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I find it tremendously difficult to mock the Saints because they have so many holes. They have issues with money at the moment. It's hard to tell exactly what they're doing, and I don't even think they really know what they're doing. Johnson just seems to be the player that has the most value here. If Mason Graham somehow falls, I think he would make sense here. I could certainly imagine a Jalen Walker going here. I think edge rush is something they need. Not out of the question that they go Shedeur Sanders if he falls. But even that, I don't think it really makes sense for them. I mean, this is not a situation where you want a rookie quarterback going in. This is going to get very ugly for them very quickly. So Johnson at least helps them rebuild.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they still have Derek Carr on the contract. Not that he's that great, but still. John Sanders, 411 Super Chat. Thank you so much. He says, thanks for removing the Mahomes jersey from the wall. So thank you, Ben, for removing the jersey and getting the Super Chat from John Sanders.
I aim to play. I'm not going to go put the hat on this time, but I will just point out I've got a better player up there now, so it's all good.
Okay, nice. Who is that? I can't tell. It's kind of small.
That's me. That's me, baby.
Okay, I'm no. Oh, okay. Now I've zoomed in. Okay, I see it. Nice. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So thank you so much, John. Really appreciate it. He says it's very easy to mock the Saints. That's true.
That's good.
And Saints have a plan. I think. Yeah, it's a plan, but we'll see what happens. But they have some sort of plan. All right, number 10, pick 10. You have Kelvin Banks going to the Bears. So yeah, I mean, they added 3 offensive linemen this offseason, but they still need help there. It makes sense to give Caleb Williams all the time he needs to take more sacks. He can hold the ball for a minute now. He can take sacks. So I don't know. We had this discussion last night or 2 nights ago when we're talking about Caleb Williams and like how Ben Johnson going there was a mistake for Ben Johnson. He should have waited, and I'm like, Caleb Williams was a top pick. Maybe he turns him into something, but this is last night, and then our one of our co-hosts was like, did you see him on Thanksgiving? It's just like, yeah, that's true. And then he did the same thing on 4 weeks later against Seattle. So, but yeah, offensive line help definitely makes sense.
It is weird because there's a remarkable amount of buzz about them going O-line. No matter how many O-linemen they bring in, everyone's just saying, well, they're probably going to go more O-linemen. And anyone who watched them last year, you've kind of got to agree. I know they have other needs. It's entirely possible they go, I don't know, defensive tackle is a possibility. Tyler Warren, maybe, given he's still available here. They could even go Genty. They might even trade up for him. We'll have to wait and see. I know Genty's the second favorite to go to the Bears, but I don't know. I just feel like O-line makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I could see any of the players that you mentioned there. I think I have Kenneth Grant going to them. If I remember correctly, I can just pull it up right here. I have the Bears taking Kenneth Grant at 10th overall. So I feel like this is Mason Graham's floor as well. You said 9. I think that could happen too at 10. If he falls to 10, I think that they just scoop him up. So, all right. So pick 11, Kenneth Grant. Speaking of him, so we have the Niners taking him. It's not a surprise to see him taking defensive line, right? I mean, this is what they've done for many years under John Lynch, except for last year. They didn't take a defensive lineman, so maybe they make up for it here. So that makes a lot of sense.
Look, they have a surprising amount of holes these days, and I could imagine them going O-line. I think if Banks fell, for example, they'd consider that here. But I think with Banks gone, Membu gone, and Campbell gone, defensive tackle makes all the sense in the world. I think it's going to be whichever of those players falls to the 49ers. They'll snap them up. It's a weird opportunity for them. We don't see them drafting this high much these days. I guess it's a question mark of whether they believe this is a rebuild or whether they think they can quickly get back up into being a contender.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they're usually drafting in the mid-20s or 30s. It's rare to see them up here, and they get a premium player. It's funny, we have our picks swapped. I have the Bears taking Grant and the Niners taking Banks. So, yeah, it could go either way. Pollyanna is saying Will Johnson under 11.5 is plus 160. Seems like a great bet. Please tell me where you found that so I can bet it. But I have to drive to Trenton, the Trenton Thunder Baseball Stadium, to do that because Pennsylvania doesn't allow draft betting. So I have to cross the state lines. That seems great, doesn't it? I mean, I think
I've already bet that's available here as well. So I've bet that exact bet or very, very, very similar odds. It seems like really good odds. It's pretty crazy.
Wow. Seems incredible odds. Yeah, I do want confirmation from Charlie, but right now it seems great. Unless he slips on a banana peel or something, he should be going in the top 10. All right, pick 12. You have Tataroa McMillan to the Cowboys. That's Charlie's pick for the Cowboys. I haven't taken Genty, falling this far, but Genty could easily be gone. And I think if he is gone, McMillan makes so much sense. They don't have any weapons on a receiver outside of Lamb. So yeah, McMillan here. I think it's Genty or McMillan.
Yeah, I agree. I have heard some names talking about the possibility of McMillan really falling, outside the top 20 falling. That seems a little bit surprising to me because the Cowboys have such a massive need here at wide receiver, and they're not the only team that needs a receiver in this range either. So McMillan to me is the clear number one guy in this class, outside Hunter, obviously. There's kind of a big gap for me between him and everybody else, so I'm shocked that there's even that possibility he could fall. I think this just seems to make all the sense in the world. If not, they could go O-line or D-line, but I don't know. If McMillan falls past here and the Cowboys haven't managed to get another falling player on the way past, then that'll totally shock me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. All right, so pick 13, you have Gray Zabel going to the Dolphins. Daniel Jeremiah called him a first-round lock because he could play any position on the offensive line. And man, the Dolphins, they already had issues in the offensive line. They did sign James Daniels to help the interior, but they had a horrible interior line last year. And then they had Terron Armstead retire. So yeah, now they suddenly need a tackle as well. But yeah, I mean, any offensive line help, I mean, would have to make Tua Tagovailoa happy, because he could be one concussion away from ending his career. So yeah, I mean, Zabel makes a lot of sense. And any lineman makes a lot of sense to them.
Yeah, this was kind of like a last minute adjustment when I made that change yesterday. When I originally did this mock, I didn't have Zabel in there. I wasn't comfortable with that. And then when I dropped Sanders out, I'm like, well, now I can bring Zabel in, but I would have needed to shift like 4 or 5 players to really find a proper range for him. So I think this is too early for him. But especially given he's got shorter arms than Will Campbell. So it's not like we're talking about a situation where he's an absolute safe player, but he's certainly someone that could fit this scheme. He's very used to run heavy schemes. And I feel like the Dolphins really need to get back to having a properly good running game, because that really showed last season.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't run the ball at all last year. They just got pushed around in the trenches. Yeah, Dolphins might go receiver if they move on from Hill. Yeah, Tyreek Hill's dealing with some stuff. Surprise, surprise. I mean, look, I think Golden makes sense for them. If McMillan's off the board, I mean, he might be the top receiver that they have on their board anyway. Sue saying Will Johnson plus 160 bet available on Bet365. I could not bet on Bet365 for some reason. They didn't recognize where I'm from, like that I was in PA. This is not just on my laptop; it's on my phone too. Like I just couldn't place a bet with them, and so I just like took out all my money. It was really frustrating. I don't know. Maybe I need to make a new account, but that was really annoying. But hopefully it's on another sports book. All right, so pick 14. Yeah, the Colts taking Tyler Warren. Can't say I'm surprised to see this, and plus, it's one of the most frustrating things in DFS to project a Colts tight end. You know, if it's like a short slate and you're like, who do I play? Mo Alley Cox, Kylan Grayson. Like, I'd be very happy to see the Colts taking a tight end just for that reason. But I mean, this fits a big need. They haven't had a good tight end for a while. Warren. This is definitely the area in which he should go, right?
Yeah, I feel like they have such a weird set of needs compared to every team around them. For most teams, it's like O-line, D-line, like they need a tackle, they need a cornerback. With the Colts, it's totally different. It's tight end, safety, and interior linemen are the 3 things that they need. And therefore, those players are likely to fall to them, even if Warren doesn't. I can imagine going Loveland. Most bookies have Loveland as likely to go in the top 18. So Loveland could easily go here, even if Warren goes to the Jets, for example. MN Warrior, I feel like this is the sort of range for him as well. And I know, for example, Charlie's talked about Tyler Booker being a real option here. And I know you've mocked him here as well in the past. I think that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, for sure. They lost 2 interior linemen, so that makes sense. Cassandra says, what are you doing with Isaiah Bond at this point? I have him 35 in my mock draft, so early second round. What do you think about Bond? What do you think he would go?
Yeah, I think mid-second round. I feel like wide receivers are going to drop in this draft. I feel like we're going to see more of a wide receiver run in that kind of early to mid-second round, and I feel like Bond will be kind of towards the back end of that run, because I feel like he's going to go behind Egbuka, behind Bird, and obviously behind Golden. And so therefore he'll fall a little bit more sort of to around into the 40s and 50s, I think.
I need to do a best ball draft with you, because I couldn't believe like where Isaiah Bond was going in this best ball drafts. Like, you see like these rookies going way too early for the most part. You see like Genty's going early second round in this fantasy drafts. Let's name you see Marion Hampton go like early fifth. Judkins and Henderson go 6th. So McMillan probably around the same area. But like Isaiah Bond is going like 17th round or 18th round, and I just don't understand why. I'm like, this seems like a great value. Like, whereas like most of the other rookies are just reaches at this point. So, especially given that you don't know where they're going to go. But yeah, I think that Bond is somewhere in the second round. That's where I think he would go. Slew says Tyler Warren number 44. That was Dallas Clark's number. Interesting. I'm so bad with football jersey numbers. I'm horrible. Like I might be the worst. I could probably name it like. I know Brady's 12. I know Mahomes is 15. I know Manning was 18. Peyton Manning. That might be it. I don't know any other numbers. I'm the worst with numbers. I don't know why. That's like ignore them. I don't know.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's only a couple of numbers you really need to remember, and that's anyone you're watching on your fantasy team and everyone else, whatever.
Yeah. I didn't see this. And they said Isaiah Bond as sexual. Yeah. I just googled it. Isaiah Bond self surrenders on sexual assault warrants. Okay. Well, I didn't see that today. I was busy with the kids and whatnot. So this news broke 6 hours ago. So yeah, I mean, yeah. Now you definitely have to drop him. So I would drop him. I don't know. I mean, we had like, remember Lyle Collins? He fell out of the draft, like, so like on certain things like that. So yeah, he could definitely fall. So although John's saying now we know who the Chiefs are drafting. It's true. It's 100% true. All right, Pollyanna says Tyler Warren over 10.5 plus 140 seems a good value if you do not think he goes to the Jets or the Saints. Yeah, I think that's pretty good value too. Again, like, we're gonna get some major intel from Charlie, so I'm not looking to bet that right now. But if I had to bet it right now, that's where I would lean. But I would wait for Charlie. And Sue says Ben is number 23. And any reason behind 23? Is that Jordan or what?
It's a pretty famous Australian sporting number. A lot of the best Australian sportsmen have worn 23. Shane Warne, our best ever cricket player, wore 23 when I was growing up, and quite a few others as well. So it's more about that. But Jordan too.
It's funny that was not it. I thought it was Jordan. All right. Pick 15. Michael Williams to the Falcons. That is the pick I have for the Falcons. Yeah, I mean, their pass rush was better after their bye. But it still feels like they need to address that, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, this has just got to happen. We know that they were likely to take Latu last year until they fell in love with Michael Penix. Even the year before, I mocked them an edge rusher as well, and I keep getting frustrated by the fact they don't take one. So I'm going to be like just apoplectic if they don't take an edge rusher this year. It just doesn't make any sense how they keep letting it go. They cannot rush the quarterback. They get no pressure at all. They had the second fewest sacks last year. It absolutely needs to happen. They need to get proper edge rush pressure. And if this is the only edge rusher they get in the draft, I would also be shocked. I think Williams makes sense here, but look, it's not impossible that someone like a Walker will fall. I know that Mike Green is getting mocked in this range a lot, which is surprising to me, but it's happening. Shamar Stewart's not out of the question, but for me, it should be Williams. In fact, for me, Williams should be even higher. It's just that I don't think that's likely to happen, even though it probably should.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said. John saying if Falcons should mess with people in drafts, Shedeur Sanders, that would be funny. I mean, the Penix thing was a shock. This would be even crazier. Bagger saying, when's the last time the Chiefs drafted a guy with character issues? Willie Gay is the only guy I remember in the last decade. I mean, Tyreek Hill had his character issues. I think that's like what the reference is to. I feel like there have been others. I don't know. Maybe it's just a trope at this point, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know if you guys want to chime in with this, but I feel like I remember it, but I don't know. Maybe this is Mandela effect or something. Usually we draft normal guys and they reveal themselves to be dirtbags later. Rashi Rice went a little fast in his car, but that was afterward, right? I mean, we didn't know anything about that beforehand, right? I think that happened after his rookie year. So yeah. Yeah, he was the 5th rounder at that point. Who cares? Yeah, that's definitely true. But that's what we're talking about, right, Bagley? It's if Isaiah Bond falls, like the Chiefs could take him in the 5th round, right? It would be the same pick. And I guess Marcus Peters too. That was also the case. Kareem Hunt was a stand-up citizen. Yeah, not the draft pick, but yeah, they did sign him. Kelsey, that's it for Reed era, as far as I'm aware. But I mean, Andy Reid is a guy who takes second chances on people. That's what he does. So, he brought back Michael Vick, for example. Like he's always had like a soft spot for giving guys second chances. So, I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. Like Bond could just completely fall out of the draft, or someone could take him in the 5th round or something. But I don't know. Like, who knows? Maybe this will be resolved in the coming days. I don't know anything about the story. I just saw the headlines, so I read more into it. But right now, yeah, I mean, you have to assume he's going to definitely fall. So I don't know if those best ballers had like visions of the future like letting him fall. And I think I did draft Bond at some point, so that's unfortunate for me. And it's best ball, so it's not like I can cut him. Like says Lyle Collins is the biggest NFL scam ever. He would have been a first-round pick, but NFL held him out of the draft, so then he got to sign wherever he wanted. So free first-round pick to the Cowboys. Yeah, that was ridiculous. And then he became a great lineman for the Cowboys, and then he just completely fell off the map, just mysteriously. That was a very strange career from Collins. Anyway, we move on, and we go to the 16th pick. You have Jahdae Barron to the Cardinals. I feel like they could take any cornerback. It would make sense. They've had a weak cornerback group for years. I think offensive line makes sense as well. I've heard that they want to trade down, but I feel like every team wants to trade down. But that's what I heard from the Cardinals. So why any reason for Barron over the other cornerbacks, or was he just like your best corner available?
Yeah, I really struggle with Barron. He is considered both by a lot of mockers and also by the bookies as a potential first cornerback off the board, taking Travis Hunter out, of course. And I find that really weird. He's pretty small. I don't even know that he can really play on the outside. It's a weird one to me, and yet I have to kind of trust what a lot of other people are saying and assume that he is going to be in the conversation as the after Will Johnson cornerback. And I feel like the Cardinals kind of really need a lot of cornerback help, and he could legitimately play in the slot there if things don't go right either. So it's kind of a fit that makes sense. I also put this in with the potential that they may draft down because I feel like this is a little bit early for him. But it wouldn't shock me at all. I've seen him mocked in the top 10 to the Saints several times by guys who are usually pretty accurate mock drafters. So I don't know. It's a weird one where I feel like they could go here. I've also mocked them D linemen at times. I feel like edge is a real possibility here, and they also need to work on the O-line too. So it's not that they have a shortage of needs. It's just that there aren't a lot of teams that are definitely going to take a cornerback, and I feel like Barron kind of belongs somewhere in this region.
Yeah, it just feels like every player who makes sense for them, they can get in the 20s. So, I think that they are a strong candidate to trade down. Didn't Xavier Worthy get arrested recently? Hard to keep up. Yeah, but as Bagley said, they became scumbags afterward, but not all of them. All right, so pick 17, Nick Manawari going to the Bengals. We usually get good intel on the Bengals, but that doesn't come until like the weekend before the draft. So right now, just kind of like in the dark here, but I wouldn't be shocked if if I'm told Nick Manawari, if he's there, he's going to be the pick. Just makes so much sense. They don't have any safety help like at all.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Trey Hendrickson. I feel like if he's gone anytime before the draft, all of a sudden you just absolutely have to give them an edge rusher. And even without that, I do think that D-line's still a real possibility. Both edge or defensive tackle could happen here. Wouldn't be surprised, for example, to see a Kenneth Grant fall into this region or something along those lines. And there's plenty of tackles if they wanted defensive tackles if they want to trade down. A lot of edge rushers in this region. Mike Green could have gone here, for example, but Manawari needs to go somewhere in this sort of 13 to 20 region. And I'm struggling to work out where. It could be the Dolphins, it could be the Bengals, it could be down at the Vikings even potentially, but he's clearly a first-round player. It's just a question of who takes him, and that makes mocking really awkward when you have those players that you want to go in a region, but you have no idea who's going to take them.
Yeah, Tony Pauline from Sportskeeda, he used to post stuff on our site. He's a great draft analyst. He recently wrote that he expects the Bengals, or I don't know if he's heard the Bengals, that they will draft an edge rusher and then trade Hendrickson after the draft is over. So it doesn't have to be like Hendrickson then trade. It could be like the opposite too. That could certainly happen. So yeah, if there's a good edge rusher available, I think that's a strong possibility. But they could all be gone, or the top guys. So Manawari makes so much sense too. Cassandra says, a guy calling to Boston Sports Radio today said the Patriots should trade pick for TJ Watt. That's a bonus. That would be that. New England finally would have an African American face of the franchise.
I thought that was Stephon Diggs. What are we talking about?
Yeah, he was that serious, no idea what to say. It's very bizarre. Bagger says it seems like every other year there's a safety that everyone is sure will go in the first round that he doesn't. Yeah, usually safety gets pushed down. It's kind of like defensive tackles who don't rush the passer. Kind of like the run stuffing defensive tackles, they tend to fall as well. So yeah, it's those two positions that tend to get moved down. But Manawari is such a great athlete. Like I think he's definitely going to go first round. Malachi Starks, on the other hand, like he's not as good of an athlete, even though he has great tape too. Like I could see him falling out of the first round, but Imanwari I think is pretty safe. All right, so pick 18, Matthew Golden. So we brought him up earlier. I said I feel like he would be the Dolphins' top receiver, just given his skill set. And I think like it could go Golden then McMillan, even though like it seemed like every mock draft had McMillan as the receiver one this whole time. But yeah, Seattle, they don't have much of a receiver. They signed Cooper Kupp unless you're a big believer in him, or Marcus Valdes-Scantling, who, by the way, I've been drafting like in the 19th round of best ball just because he has those spike weeks. But yeah, the Golden pick would kind of ruin that, unfortunately.
Yeah, look, this is a really weird situation where, again, someone has to take a Matthew Golden somewhere in this range. I think the Seahawks are the most likely, but it really does make a lot more sense for them to go O-line. And Tyler Booker's still around. I think Booker would make sense in this range. We could easily see someone like a Banks fall, or Gray Zabel could easily go here. I think he'd make a lot of sense too. So for me, it's probably a Golden or an O-lineman. I just don't know which.
Yeah, I do think that you're right. And I think if Tyler Warren were to fall here, I think that this would be his floor. So yeah, I have that. I just couldn't like fit Tyler Warren anywhere. I'm going 18 to Seattle. Maybe they try up a couple spots to get him. All right, so 19, you have Jihad Campbell going to the Buccaneers. I believe Charlie does as well. I have this pick too. So yeah, I mean they haven't had good linebacker play outside of Levante David for a couple of years, and Levante David is 35 now, so they need to find a successor for him. So yeah, Campbell is a very logical pick for Tampa.
Yeah, this seems to be the most popular pick in outside the top 10 in any position for any team. It just makes so much sense. He also belongs in this 15 to 20 range. You could see him potentially going to, I don't know, the Falcons, as low as the Rams would potentially make sense as well. But I mean, it is the kind of thing the Buccaneers would do to take an inside linebacker in the first round, and they don't even have to do it top 5 this time. So I feel like this would be a win for them. They need someone to replace Levante David, who is definitely close to aging out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm for this pick. I'm worried Atlanta might take him, but it is a very logical pick there. So 20, you have the Broncos taking Omarion Hampton. Yeah, I feel like this could definitely happen. Genty, like if they deem him like worthy enough to trade up for, like I don't think they go in the top 10, but maybe ahead of Dallas, like 20 to 11 is feasible. They don't have anything at running back. Sean Payton is just went like cycled through his running backs, like you see like Jerry Seinfeld like cycling through girls on his show. Like that's how Sean Payton treated his running backs last year. It was so frustrating. It's like, okay, Audric Estime looks good, and then okay, he gets hurt, fine. And then it's then Javonte Williams, you go back to him, and he doesn't do anything. So they go to McLaughlin, he stinks, and then they go back to Estime. It just it was really frustrating to like handicap this for like fantasy perspective. So it's kind of like the Colts with their tight ends, right? Just Denver taking a running back. Like this is their biggest need by far, and there are good running backs here. So just it makes so much sense.
Yeah, ranking Broncos running backs last year was an absolute nightmare. I know they talked about hot hand, but hot hand is just another term for we don't trust our running backs. They have to get someone in the first day or two. I think this makes sense, but it's entirely possible he doesn't even fall this far. I also know it's a really popular pick to give him a wide receiver. I don't think that really makes sense. You've already got Courtland Sutton there. Marvin Mims is finally starting to play okay. They seem to like Valet and Franklin. How many wide receivers do they need? I don't even think this is a particularly strong wide receiver class. So I don't know why you take one here when you have stronger needs, and yet it's kind of like the popular pick to them. So I don't know. It's Hampton for me, and if they don't go that, I still think wide receiver is unlikely. I think they're more likely to go somewhere in the back, towards the back of their defense.
Well, I think if McMillan falls to them, I think they definitely take him. I have that in my mock draft just because of the value. Like, I mean, if they deem him to be a top 12 pick and they get him at 20, and same thing to Golden to an extent, but I had McMillan over Golden. But I mean, obviously, every team has their own board. But I agree. Like anything beyond those two, I think that they would wait on a receiver. But if they just think the value is there, then I think that's correct. But yeah, I mean running back too. Like I mean, you could argue running back. There's a strong belief that you should never take a running back in the first round. Like some people would say that. I think I would only do that if there were a special player, like say a Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey, like one of those guys, But I mean, you've done the research on this, like running backs in the first round, in the top. I think if I remember correctly, like you had like in the top running backs in the top half were it's generally successful in the first year, but like running backs 17 to 32 were not, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, spot on. Back half of the first half is not where you want to be taking your running backs. You either want your elite running backs early in the first round, or you want to wait until the second round, and that's where they start to pick up in value again. Having said that, if they think that Hampton is truly an early first round running back and he just falls to them, then I think this would make a lot of sense. If not, day two certainly would be where they'd begin their running back.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they could definitely do this. But if they did, I would not grade it favorably. I feel like you can just get it running back in round two. Or if they trade down like 7 spots or something and then take Hampton, then I would like that a lot more. But running back at 20, if it's not Genty, it just seems like a mistake, I think. But, they could definitely do it. Such as they could just trade up 4 spots and take Hampton there. There you go. Yeah. All right. So 21, Walter Nolan to the Steelers. I've had issues placing Nolan. I feel like I've had him like all over the place. I've had him as high as 16, I think, maybe even earlier. And then I had him as low as like the 3rd round. I just don't know where to place this guy. So you haven't gone to the Steelers. So any reason why?
I feel like the Steelers need to be improving their D-line. I feel like it's a weakness that they need to be working on. I know quarterback's an issue, but unless they decide that they want Sanders or Darty, which I think is possible, I think that D-line's the only other position that truly makes sense. Nolan seems to be one of those love-hate prospects that could go anywhere, but for me, he's likely to go somewhere in the first round, and I feel like this is the slot for him. Could easily be Derek Harmon as well. He could easily swap them around, but I don't know. To me, this just kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just there's so many defensive linemen who make sense here. Just like it's so hard to place them. So I hope that Charlie gives us some info on like a certain team likes certain defensive linemen. That would just make it a lot easier. Let's see, devalued safety starts in Pop Warner. Johnny, go way back there and don't let anyone get behind you. That's definitely true. All right, so pick 22, Colson Loveland to the Chargers. I have this as well. They met with Loveland and they brought him in for a top 30 visit. And obviously Harbaugh coached him. And they need a tight end. So, this is very, very logical pick. What do you think?
Yeah, look, this just makes all the sense in the world. I know they need a tackle as well, and certainly the bookies seem to believe that D-line is where they're going to go, but I don't know, Loveland's got to go somewhere in this range, and what other team is really going to love him than, like, we're talking a former Michigan guy. He's a tight end, which they desperately need. They need a proper tight end that's not Will Disley. I don't know. This just makes so much sense to me that I know a lot of people are mocking it here. I don't understand why the odds don't suggest that this is a more likely outcome. You can get like plus 600 and things like that on them taking a tight end, which seems surprisingly long for me.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great bet. I really need to make it out to Trent Thunder Baseball Stadium to look at these up. Although someone did point out to me, I could, how like, well, I mean, I was about to say, like, how you could select the state of like. I had a brain fart there. Like you're not in the U.S. But in the U.S., you have to if you go to a sports book, you select like what state are you in, and you click the state you're in, as if like you can lie. It's just I don't know. I guess they like match you up with your location. But someone pointed out to me that I could just say I'm in New Jersey and just look at the odds. I wouldn't be able to bet them, but I could just at least look at the odds. So I wouldn't have to travel to New Jersey just to look at the odds. Not that it's super far away. It's like a 20, 25-minute drive, but it's still inconvenient. Loveland's over 19.5 at plus 175 on DraftKings. But as Ben was saying earlier, that there's some speculation to go like around 18. So I don't think this is very safe. I would bet the over if I had to, though. Would you do that as well?
Yeah, I have bet this. I do think he's more likely to go in that range. I didn't bet very much, but I certainly thought that seemed more likely to happen than not, and for that reason, I was happy to take those odds. I'll put a little bit of money on anything I think is likely to be good odds, but I'm not actually going to bet a proper heavy amount on that.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, 23, Maxwell Hairston going to the Packers. I could hear Packer fans at distance like, why not receiver? Like, but they never take a receiver in the first round. So I guess they know that. They secretly know that. So why Harrison to the Packers?
Look, there's been a lot of talk that they're going to go cornerback first round, defensive tackle second round. I've kind of matched them a cornerback or a defensive tackle most rounds. I don't think wide receiver really makes sense. I don't think there's the really elite number one receiver available here. If McMillan fell, or if they could go up and get McMillan at a good spot, then I think that makes a lot more sense. But they've got wide receivers everywhere. They've got a whole heap of speed guys and guys that can play as the second receiver. They need a number one, and there's just not a number one available in this draft. So they should really be going elsewhere and then taking some pot shots or doing a better job in free agency to bring in their number one receiver. So for that reason, I've got them going cornerback, but I could easily imagine them going D-line as well.
Yeah, I think if they like Golden a lot too, they can maybe take him, but there's no guarantee he falls to 23 anyway. So pick 24, you have the Vikings taking Tyler Booker. They brought in Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, so another lineman, and I do think it's a need. I think they have a great offensive line. They just had the one hole at guard, so they fill it with Booker here, and just it continued to strengthen their offense, right?
Yeah, for me, this is the most logical thing to do. It's the most sensible thing to do. It's not what the bookmakers agree will happen, and we can talk about that in that draft. But I looked this morning, there's some bookies that have safety as the most likely option, which is something I've never seen before. I've never seen safety as the favorite position for any team. It doesn't really make sense to me here. I don't know that they desperately need a safety. I know they lost Cam Bynum. I know that Harrison Smith is getting older, but it's the kind of position you can pick up in the later rounds as well. I feel like if MN Wari falls this far, this would be a logical spot for him, but I think that's kind of unlikely. I think he probably goes somewhere in the top 20. So for that reason, for me, I'm going Booker because they need to keep JJ McCarthy healthy in his redshirt rookie season. I'd like to see them give him the best opportunities to succeed. They brought him in, give him a chance to make it work. And to do that, you want to have an elite O-line. I feel like that gives them a real chance to win. I guess the other question I have for you can get odds on under 1.5 safeties in the first round at things like plus 350. What do you think the odds are of Starks falling out of the first rounds?
I think he goes first round, but it's not anywhere close to 100%. I'd say the odds of him going first round are probably 60%, whereas Amon is close to 100. He's not 100 because there could always be something, an injury that they don't reveal. Sometimes a guy will fall, like Juwan Taylor comes to mind, where everyone projected him number 9 to the Jaguars, and then the Jaguars took him in the second round. And after the first day, it's like, why did he fall? And it's because there was an injury, and then of course no one knew about it. So Mawari's not 100%, but he's close. But Starks, I think, is closer to 50-50, maybe 60%, like I said. So under 1.5 safeties is 3-1. You said I think it's worth a bet. I wouldn't feel too comfortable about it, but as we've been saying in the chat, that there are safeties are devalued. Bagley pointing out Landon Collins, Xavier McKinney, Trayvon Moreg, Brian Branch are all supposedly first round locks. I don't know about more. I don't think Moreg was a first round lock, but I mean some of the other guys were definitely projected in the first round. I think that he's onto something there. I think that's a good bet, but not certainly not a lock. Is that something you're considering betting?
Yeah, look, it was just something I thought was interesting because I've had Starks in pretty much every mock I've done, but when I went to do it with the bookies mock, he had to be in there. But I was starting to think there's not really that many natural landing spots for him as you go down past the Vikings. So I was struggling to fit him in, and I was wondering whether it made sense to even leave him out entirely.
Yeah, no, I've had that issue too. But as John Sanders pointing out, I want the Bills to take Starks at 30. Yeah, they usually we've had this discussion before. They usually go for positional value, high positional value, which is not safety. But given that this first round class is not very strong, they might just deem it as a second round pick at that point, and they're like, okay, this is basically a mid second round pick that we're taking Starks at, which makes the most sense. So I think Buffalo is definitely a landing spot. So if you have the under 1.5 and you get to Buffalo and they take someone else, you can you have a sigh of relief because I don't see the Chiefs or the Eagles taking him. But I guess someone could always trade up. But yeah,
it's interesting. I have actually seen the Eagles mocked him a few times, which doesn't really make any sense to me. I guess the other possibility with the Bills as well, they're in that perfect landing spot for a team wanting to trade up and get a quarterback. So it is entirely possible they slide down to 33, 34, 35, and then they get the safety there because I don't think anyone else is going to take him in that range.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so pick 25, you have the Texans taking Derek Harmon. About the right area for him. I believe I had him go to the Steelers in a recent mock draft, and then I moved them out. And right now I have Vikings taking Derek Harmon, so one pick beforehand. More defensive line help to maybe stop Mahomes, right?
Yeah, O-line is an extremely heavy favorite to go here, so I really struggle with this, but I just feel like this makes more sense. I don't like their defensive tackles at the moment. They need help there. In this mock, Harmon's fallen to them, so I feel like this is the right range for him. I could easily see them going O-line as well. It's going to be one side of the trenches. We don't know which, but Harmon belongs somewhere in the first round. I feel like he's a solid option, so he kind of helps them out here.
Yeah. All right, so pick 26, you have Emeka Egbuka to the Rams. I think a receiver makes sense, even though they signed Devontae Adams. Adams is not going to be around for that long, so they need receiver depth. They did re-sign Tutu Atwell, and I think this is kind of like telegraphing that they're going to take a receiver because they're like, oh, Atwell's going to be on the field a lot this year. I'm like, okay, thanks. Yeah, sure. Sure, if you say so. It was 1 year, $10 million, which was like a lot of money for him, but it was only 1 year. So teams will often do this. They'll sign a guy to a 1 year contract, and then they'll draft at the same position because that 1 year contract is basically insurance just in case they don't get the player they want at 26. So I think any receiver makes sense. You mentioned Campbell here. I think if he falls, he's definitely going to be in the mix. So yeah, any reason like Egbuka over the other receivers, or is he just like your next best receiver?
He is my next best receiver, but I think he is more of a natural fit. I don't think they really need. How many small, like little shifty guys do they have? Like, I think they're okay with that. They can get one of their many like wide receiver 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys to do what Luther Burden can do, for example. Whereas I feel like Egbuka just gives them a little bit more to work with. Yeah,
that's something true. All right, so 27, Shamar Stewart to the Ravens. I have Stewart higher than this. I'm going 9 to the Saints. I don't know where to put him. He's like all over the place, feels like. But the Ravens Ravens and Eagles are always the teams that draft players who fall to them mysteriously. And then you always have the people on TV going like, how did they get this guy? And it's like, it's always the case. So yeah, Stewart helping the pass rush, which was pretty weak, right?
Yeah, look, I just use the Ravens as a catch-all. If I think there's a player that's falling, and I'm like, I can't have this guy going this low, I just give him to the Ravens because that's what's going to happen in the draft. And then in this case, Stewart's kind of falling. I feel like he probably goes earlier than this, but I've seen guys like Mike Green higher as well, and there's only so many teams that can take edge rushers. So I don't know that Stewart necessarily will go higher. I think that's possible he goes in the top 10, but I think it's equally possible he nearly falls out of the first round. His production last year was terrible, and I know this because I had him in a college fantasy league, and he was useless. So I'm not sure that I'm really that confident in his ability to produce at an NFL level because he couldn't even produce at the college level. I know he's got all of the tools, and by tools, I mean straight line speed and explosiveness, but there's a little bit more to being an edge rusher than just being able to run fast in one direction. Kind of need to turn a corner, and I'm not sure that he's really got the ability to do that.
Yeah, I think you might be right, but it's always going to be a coach be like, I could turn him into the next great edge rusher. It's the coaches are definitely they definitely think that way. All right, so 28, Donovan Eziraku, edge rusher here to the Lions. So want to talk about this pick?
Look, I remember last time we did this, we both had Jack Sawyer at 28, and we did it independently of each other because we know what the Lions like to do. They like to get those leadership types in. They like to get those guys that they feel like are a right fit for their team. I feel like this guy is. I did a little bit of research, and his teammates are describing him as like the little coach. That is, he just runs around and just tries to help out and stuff and tell people how to do stuff. Like, he is that sort of like hard-working leadership type. Dan Campbell loves these guys. They need edge rushes. I believe this is the right range for him, like late first round. I think this makes all the sense in the world. Whether it happens or not, it probably won't, but at least this is roughly the range I'd like to see him go in.
Yeah, definitely, they're definitely in the mix for those sort of players. Dan Campbell loves them. 29. So I was wondering where you would take the Redskins taking James Pierce. I thought for a second when you didn't have the Ravens taking Pierce that he would fall to the Eagles, but another NFC East team taking him makes sense. The Redskins don't have a pass rush. James Pierce falling, there are concerns with him, but super talented guy. So it makes sense to take him in 29.
Yeah, look, if he went as high as, I don't know, 15, look, if he went at 9 to the Saints, I wouldn't be entirely shocked. I think that would be a bit surprising, but I think that's possible. But if he falls out of the first round as well, I think that's entirely possible too. There's one bookmaker here that has the odds of him going in the first round as pretty much evens. Like there is a real I guess, impression that he could potentially fall out of the first round. And I think based on his character, that could happen. But with his talent, these low in the first round teams, they can take a risk on a guy like this. And if he fails, then that makes perfect sense. The Commanders badly need edge help. They don't have the defensive tackle pressure they've had in the previous couple of years. So they're going to need to get a lot more off the edge than they've been getting previously. And I think Pierce can really help them do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat the opposite of what the Lions are drafting. So it does fill a need, and so I think they're a scary team. Cassandra will laugh at me. I bet them to win the Super Bowl, but I think that this is like one of their very few weaknesses now is the edge rush. So that would certainly help. 30, you have the Bills taking Alfred Collins. So do you want to talk about this pick?
They can't stop the run. Like, they need to be able to stop the run. They need better in interior alignment on their defense. I know they also need safety help, for example, and I think that would also do the same thing. And Starks would make sense here. But I like Collins. He's a good run stopper. I feel like there's going to be one of those defensive tackles is going to slide into the back end of the first round. Someone like a Collins or a Jordan Birch or one of those guys that we talk about as being probable second rounders. They're the type of players that always end up late in the first round randomly because it's just what a team needs and what they decide they want. So Collins goes here to me, but I think in my final mock, I'll probably go elsewhere just to fit a player into the first round. But I do think they're more likely to go DT.
Yeah, they definitely do need help against the run, that's for sure. So 31, Josh Simmons going to the Chiefs. Scary injury they had with the torn patellar tendon, which has ended a lot of careers. We do have advanced medical technology now than we had before, but still, I would worry about it. But I mean, if he gets over the injury, it's a heck of a pick for the Chiefs because I feel like he'd be top 15 if it weren't for that injury, right?
Look, there's plenty of upside here. I feel like we need to finally go O-line. I've been saying that for years, and I keep getting it wrong. It needs to happen. They need to protect Patrick Mahomes. They've spent so much money on him, and they're not doing a good job of protecting him. They've finally given him some options to pass to, and he can't do it because he's constantly getting sacked and having to scramble. So they need to improve the O-line. They can do that here, and they probably need to be doing it a little bit more in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And final pick, Eagles drafting Mike Green. You brought him up a few times. Again, it's like the Niners. You can't be surprised at all if they take a defensive lineman. I think it's really the question like which defensive lineman they take at this point. It could be tackle too, because Lane Johnson's getting up there in age. But yeah, I mean any defensive lineman definitely works for the Eagles.
Yeah, they need to replace Josh Sweat. They can take a risk on a guy who's got potential character issues. Look, he could easily go top 15. This could be the pick for the Falcons. But if someone an edge rush is going to fall, it's going to be him or a Pierce or a Stewart. So that's why I've got them, the guy sliding down.
Okay, all right. Let's get to your odds mock draft. So this is gonna be interesting. So I just love the odds on Cam Ward there. Cam Ward is minus 20,000. So you guys have 20,000 to put down. You can win $100. It's nice. So I feel like we can just get that pick. We can move to number 2, Travis Hunter, minus 280. Carter plus 180. Sanders is 17-1. I don't envision betting this because it could be Carter. I mean, we think it's Hunter because we heard a couple people. We heard Schefter say that he thinks it's gonna be Hunter, but Schefter's been like all over the place. First he said quarterback, and then he said Carter, and now he's saying Hunter. Like, what's to stop Schefter being like, oh, it's gonna be Carter, So if I were to bet, I don't like Carter plus 180 seems okay. I don't know if we're gonna bet it, but And then also Todd McShay said it sounds like Hunter as well, but I don't know if that's like if it's sourced or if he just was speculating. So, do you envision betting this one, or have you, or what?
I did bet. I did a little bit earlier when it originally switched across to Hunter. I bet a little bit of Carter because the odds like overcompensated a little bit, and I felt like that the news that was coming out wasn't really strong enough to justify the swing. So I do have some money on Carter. I managed to get a little bit on Hunter because one of the sports books didn't move it quickly enough. So there was a little bit of an arbitrage opportunity there. Okay. So I bet on both sides at one stage, but for me, Carter's the one that makes the most sense.
Okay, and so if we're doing the mock draft, Hunter will be the second pick. Carter would be the third pick. Carter is minus 170. Hunter plus 250, and Sanders 4-1. So basically, the odds are flipped here. So there's no need to bet this one if you bet the earlier one. So I feel like if you're going to bet one of these, it makes sense to just take Hunter at 250, just because you get the better odds, right?
Yeah, I think that's most logical, especially because I think the odds of Sanders going here is lower. You do have a little bit more risk here because it is still possible Sanders goes in that 3 spot, but I feel like Hunter makes most sense. And if you really go searching, I tried to lock in and only use US sports books because I wanted to help you guys out. But when I looked around the Australian ones, there were some where you could find better odds on Hunter and Sanders, for example, than that.
Mm-hmm. John saying I'm a big fan of talking prospects where you can reverse their first and last name. Nobody would blink. Yeah, I mean, Hunter Travis sounds like a real person. It sounds like a country music singer, actually.
Carter Abdul, I could imagine though. Carter Abdul, his dad's from the Middle East. His mum's black. They come together. Carter Abdul is an amazing football player.
Gray Mason. I feel like there've been a lot of Gray Masons. Yeah. So
60 years ago.
Yeah. It does not work for some, but Membu Armand does not work. But yeah, it does. Yeah. All right. It's probably like a member or Armand listening to this. Like, what do you mean? My name does not work. Yeah. All right. So, all right. Pick 4 is Will Campbell. Campbell's plus 175 though. So I'm like kicking myself because someone told me like a week ago that Campbell's like 4-1. I don't know if that's still the case somewhere. Well, okay, then there it is. I don't know if you can get 4-1 in some places. I mean, there are so many sports books, so that's like the issue, just like combing through all of them. I still think plus 175 is a good number, but it's not 4-1. Unfortunately, I think I waited too long. I was waiting to like hear confirmation from Charlie because pick 4 is going to be like a strong a pick for us because we're going to get some good intel from Charlie. So I just was waiting for confirmation. But yeah, I mean, looks like the odds have worsened, but it's still plus money. So I like it. So I mean,
also worth noting as well. In the last 24 hours, that's only going towards Campbell again. Like I found some sports books where he's just plus 100 now. Like it is shortening a lot. You can, if you look around, you can still find some longer odds on him, but it's going to keep coming in.
Yeah, I better get to Trenton Thunder baseball stadium in the next couple of days. But I feel like when I do, I'm gonna get a text from Charlie saying they're not gonna take Campbell, they're gonna take Membo. So I guess you just hedge at that point. Carter Abdul is Paul Abdul's cousin. There you go. Who's the best white cornerback since Jason Sehorn? Well, it's the Eagles rookie. What's his name? I'm drawing a blank here for some reason.
Oh yeah,
it's what's his name? Cooper DeJean. There you go. Cooper DeJean. Yeah. But yeah, there haven't been that many. Hunter Travis is Randy Travis's brother. Yeah, that may not be true. I don't know. We'll just go with it. I'm not going to fact check that one. All right. So Mason Graham is the 5th pick. According to the odds, he's minus 143. Interesting that he's a heavy favorite like that. Membo is 6-1. I like that quite a lot. Warren 10-1. Walker 10-1. Yeah, I mean, right now, Charlie and I both have Membo going here, so 6-1 sounds great. I would not bet minus 143. I know you have that in your mock, but it's just no value there. Yeah. So, are you betting any of these?
Yeah, I've bet Membo there. I've bet O-line in general there. You can just bet O-line as the position the Jaguars take, and you can get pretty good odds there of around like plus 400, plus 450, and then you bring in the possibility that they go with Campbell or maybe even go for a Banks, which I think is entirely possible. So any of those guys make sense here. So I think O-line to the Jaguars is where there's a lot of money to be made.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I like those odds. So 6 Raiders, Ashton Dempsey. He's minus 143. Cornerback, it's just cornerback. They don't have a specific player.
They do now. They didn't last night, but it just opened up within the last 24 hours. At least for me. Having said that, I couldn't find it on a US one, but certainly in Australia, there's a couple where you can just specifically bet. For example, I found one Will Johnson is like plus 700.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I think I'll be betting that one. Right now it sounds like Will Johnson to us, but again, Charlie will give us some better intel in the next 2 weeks. But that's great odds for that. I get why Gentsy's the favorite, but I think Will Johnson should be a better number than 7-1. That just sounds great. That might be our better. That might be our top bet, I think. All right, so Membu 7 is offensive line minus 130, the tight ends plus 330, quarterback 7-1. I know Scott Mason from Play Like a Jet, the podcast. Definitely recommend that if you're a Jets fan. He's dying for them to take Shedeur Sanders. He really wants it to happen. Defensive line is 10-1. Membu over 6.5 minus 200. Okay, that's interesting. Over 6.5 minus 200. I think the Jaguars could take him, so that might foil that. But as far as this pick, I have Graham going here. 10-1 sounds great. That's not based on any source information, but I think they could definitely go Graham. They really missed John Franklin Myers last year, so 10-1 sounds awesome.
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of other options here that make a lot more sense. I've already bet D-line as at about plus 1,000 already, and I think Membu under 6.5 makes sense. I put in over 6.5 obviously because it's justifying this pick, but I think under 6.5 is where I'd be betting if I was going to bet that line there. But I think you can bet individual positions, and it makes a lot more sense. Because I think the odds on O-line and tight end are a little bit too tight. I feel like it's opening up possibilities elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Panthers, their pick would be Jalen Walker, defensive lines plus 100, linebacker plus 170, receiver 7-1, corner 13-1, and Jalen Walker under is 8.5 minus 300. That's a big for Jalen Walker, where it's like, yeah, he could definitely go 8, but if he doesn't, it's really a question. Like the Panthers could easily trade out of this pick, and then where does Jalen Walker go? So some team could. Like Dallas, for example, they could trade up ahead of the Bears to take Genty. They could easily go from 12 to 8, and there's so many edge rushers that the Panthers are like, okay, we just take whichever edge rusher we want at 12. So suddenly that's ruined. So I kind of wonder what Walker over 8.5 would be. Not that I'm dying to bet it. I just think that minus 300 seems like an egregious amount to pay for that.
It does seem wild. I'll have a look to see what it is right now, at least on the site that I use. The over is plus 260.
Oh, it sounds pretty good. I know he's the heavy favorite to go 8, but like I said, they could love another edge rusher. Maybe it's Michael Williams. Maybe even Shamar Stewart. That'd be crazy, but still, they could go a different position. They could trade down. Like I said, there's so many possibilities. I wonder.
I guess the real question here is do we expect that Jalen Walker to definitely be defined as a linebacker, or could he be selected as an edge rusher and then it's the edge that pays out? Because if we're expecting that Walker will definitely be a linebacker and that's how it's being paid out, then you can easily bet Walker over 8.5 and also bet linebacker to the Panthers, and you're kind of covering your bases there, and both of them have very high plus odds.
Yeah, I think it would have to be defined. Right? He's entering as a linebacker, right? So,
yes.
So I think they would have to pay out as a linebacker. I think it'd be pretty dirty if they didn't. But it's not like sportsbooks haven't done dirty things before. I talked a few times about how I know there are 2 people who were not paid out by sportsbooks who made huge amounts of money. We're talking 5 figures on draft props, and Bovada did it twice to 2 people, and I was sent screenshots of this, so I know it's legit. That and Bovada is, I don't know if they even exist anymore because they said they were closing shop in Pennsylvania, so I don't know. Maybe they're smaller now, but yeah, they were not paying out. So like I said, sportsbooks have done shady stuff, but generally, like, FanDuel, DraftKings, like they're mostly legit. Like they will limit you if they think that you're winning too much, but which I hate that. But anyway, I don't know. I feel like they'd have to define it. And usually, like, wouldn't it be like Goodell usually says the position too? I think whatever he announces, right?
Yeah,
I think
that's
what it is.
generally the way.
Yeah.
I have noted that a lot of sports books like 365, for example, have just said Travis Hunter is a cornerback. Like, we're paying out as if Travis Hunter's a cornerback. Doesn't matter what else happens, but there's no discussion there about what will happen with Jalen Walker. So I feel like that's an interesting one. But if we can definitely find that Walker's going to be considered a linebacker, then I think the odds are, I think going Panthers linebacker and then Walker over 8.5 is really interesting.
I like that. That's a good idea. Okay, so with pick 9 here, Shedeur Sanders. He is the quarterback is plus 270 to go here. It's interesting. I would not agree with that, but that's what they have listed. Cornerback 5-1, which you have. Defensive lineman 5-1. Offensive lineman 5-1. I think that makes a lot of sense. I've been going defensive line, so both of our picks are 5-1. Sanders over 8.5 minus 200. Sanders second quarterback minus 500. Feels safe, but minus 500 is not that safe, so I'd probably ignore that. But I think like you take 5-1 on each of those 3: cornerback, defensive lineman, offensive lineman, and not that I'll go crazy with it, but I think one of them will pay out, right? And then you profit because it's all 5-1.
Yeah, I think the only crack you can really fall through there is what if they go linebacker and get Jalen Walker? I guess that's possible, but other than that, I feel like it's likely to be one of those 3 positions. It's wild to me that quarterback is so strongly the favorite compared to the other options. I know it's still considered to be an underdog bet, but it's a weird situation.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Bears, they're projected to take Kelvin Banks, running back plus 230, but Gentry's gone. Offensive lineman plus 260, defensive lineman plus 360, tight end 6-1, and then Banks, first offensive lineman is 12-1. I think it's be Campbell at this point, but when we last spoke, I remember you saying that you brought up those odds, and I remember thinking they were pretty good. As far as this, I think defensive line plus 360 seems decent, but I don't really know what the Bears are going to do, so not excited to bet any of these. Have you bet any of these?
I'll check, but I do find it interesting because running back is so high. It kind of gives you opportunities on the other odds. I think if you look around a little bit, you can find some luck in finding some good odd with the Bears. I put a little bit on O-line because I found somewhere where it was plus 430. And I thought that was pretty darn good. So if you look around, I think you can find some pretty... In fact, even this morning, I found one that was plus 450 on the Bears going O-line. So I think that becomes pretty juicy.
Okay. That definitely sounds better. All right, so Niners, Will Johnson here, offensive lineman plus 190, defensive lineman plus 210, cornerback 3-1, linebacker 7-1. Will Johnson, first DB minus 139, but they have to worry about Hunter, right? And then Will Johnson under 11.5.
That's without Hunter.
Okay. All right. That's a little better. And then Will Johnson under 11.5 plus 160. We discussed that. I like that a lot. As far as this pick, defensive lineman plus 210 seems okay. I think it's going to be offensive defensive line just based on how their roster breakdown's looking and given John Lynch's record. And I mean, look, if you you bet either, just I guess you're going to do well. So I think I'm more likely to bet defensive line plus 210 though.
Yeah, but I kind of had to take some liberties with this pick because no team is favored to take a cornerback anywhere in this range. And yet we know that Johnson belongs somewhere in this region here. So even though I slotted him in there, I do feel like that's more likely the 49ers go elsewhere. And it's what the bookmakers think too. It's just they don't seem to think that any team is likely to take a cornerback in this range.
Yeah. Yeah, once Will Johnson's gone, I agree with that. All right, so yeah, Tyrell McMillan to Dallas here, receiver plus 230. It's the favorite. Offensive line plus 320, cornerback plus 490, defensive line 5-1. McMillan under 17.5 is minus 152. Not sure if I feel like that's 50-50. And then McMillan first receivers minus 182. It could be golden. So I'm in love with either of those. But yeah, we're running back not listed. Because I haven't taken Genty. That's interesting.
I don't know what's going on, but you've been able to get amazing odds on running back to the Cowboys for ages. It's like 7-1 in most places, and it's been around that. Wow. If anything, it's drifting because Genty's odds have been falling of going to the Raiders. But I think it's entirely possible we see Hampton go here as well. So I have bet running back to the Cowboys a number of times.
I did see a Dallas beat writer say something about Hampton. He's like, what would you guys do if they took Hampton? And I like replied, I'd give him a million F- or something. But no, running back seems like very likely. I don't understand why it's not heavier. I mean, I guess like you said, like he's projected more to the Raiders, but I think they're going to Will Johnson at this point. They could always change their minds. We'll see. And then to the Bears, that would be what I'm fearful of. But then you could hedge with the running back plus 230 with Chicago, and win either way. So I like taking running back for either Bears or Cowboys. Feels like you're going to win, and you could win both. If they take Hampton. So that'd be amazing. All right, so Dolphins, Gray Zabel, offensive line plus 110, makes sense. Defensive line plus 240, cornerback plus 550, safety plus 650, which I have been taking safety, but if any lineman falls to them, I think they're going to be the pick. Zabel first round is minus 1,000, so Daniel Jeremiah on it with Zabel first round lock. I'm surprised it's minus 1,000 though. I thought, if I had to guess, I thought it'd be like minus 300, but minus 1,000 seems high. So, I mean, I do think he's going to go first round. There's no reason to bet minus 1,000, especially with like better odds available for stuff.
Oh yeah, that's just the justification of why I have him so high. His odds of going first round are like minus 1,000, and every other O lineman is like minus 100 and something or other. It's very strange. I don't know why his odds are so high. I don't think he's that much of a lock. I do really like the safety odds here. I think plus 650 is pretty juicy. If you look around, you can find even better as well. I do feel like they're a team that do need to do something about their safeties, and I feel like this is the range where we could see Emmanuel going.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Colts, tight end plus is 105, offensive line plus 3, it's 3-1, linebacker 6-1, defensive line 8.5-1. Tyler Warren over 10.5 is plus 140. I kind of like that. Saints might take him, that Bears maybe, but I do think that over 10.5 makes sense. And Jets obviously, so it's not very safe, but I do think it's going to go over. I would bet offensive line plus it's 3-1. I think Tyler Booker makes a lot of sense for the Colts. Bet much better value than tight end. So have you bet any of these?
Yeah, I found Warren specifically going to the Colts at plus 300 at one stage, so I bet that earlier on. But I've mainly been betting O-line to the Colts because I don't think that Loveland goes this early. And I feel like if Warren goes elsewhere, then they probably go O-line. So I bet both Warren to the Colts and O-line. Good odds. If one of those two goes, I double my money.
Yeah, it's always nice. All right, so Falcons, Michael Williams, the defensive line is minus 170. No surprise there. Linebacker is plus 490. You talked about before with Campbell being worried about that. So it's a good number. Cornerback plus 650. Offensive line plus 950. Michael Williams under 15.5 is plus 100. I think it probably goes under, but if he falls out of 15, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing. But I think I would go under instead of over. Like I said, plus 490 for linebacker is a good number, but defensive line is minus 170 for a reason though, which was a better number, but we can't always get what we want here.
Yeah, it's impossible to really go for any of those odds, unfortunately, for the Falcons.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Cardinals, Kenneth Grant, we pick here. Defensive line is plus 210, offensive line is plus 230, cornerback plus 360, linebacker plus 450. Grant first round is minus 500. Interesting. Grant first round is minus 500 and Zabel is minus 1,000. That's I would not have expected to see that. I think it's one of the first three, I believe. So like not amazing odds for any of them. I guess cornerback plus 360 is decent. I think from past conversations, as I said before, Cardinals want to move down and then take Josh Simmons potentially. So plus 230 makes sense, but I mean that's old info. I have to get some more info, some more recent info. This is pre-free agency info. So yeah, I mean I don't see anything exciting here. Do you?
Not really. I put a very small amount on cornerback at plus 400 odd a good week ago or so because it just seemed to stand out as a possibility. The Kenneth Grant thing's really interesting. I have seen some people suggesting that teams view him as a nose tackle, and for that reason he's going to fall because nose tackles are undervalued. But we've seen nose tackles go in the first round heaps of times. I would be totally shocked if he falls out of the first round. I don't think he is one anyway. So I think that's very strange.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen a couple of nose tackles go pretty early in the first round. BJ Raji comes to mind. He went early in the first round. Who is the Ravens' great defensive tackle? Who he retired several years ago. But Haloti Ngata was another one. So I mean, we've definitely seen that. But yeah, I kind of could slip a bit. I've seen that in some mock drafts, but I do think he's a good prospect. So anyway, we move on to the Bengals. Mike Green will be the picker. Defensive line minus 140. So we're talking about that with Tony Pauline report. Cornerback plus 340. Safety plus 550. Offensive line plus 750. So yeah, I said before, this is going to be something we're going to get intel on later. Green under 17.5 is minus 161. I think I'd bet that over. I imagine the over is what, like plus 140, 130-ish? I would bet over that. So any thoughts on these?
That's actually shortened. Yeah, it's plus 130 at the moment for the over for Green, and I think that makes a whole lot more sense. I've bet safety here again because I still feel like plus 550 is pretty good. I feel like this is one of the landing spots we could see MN Worry go. But just a small amount. I don't really have strong feelings about this because I do feel like D-line's the most likely option, but you can't bet it at minus 140.
Okay. All right. So Seahawks taking Matthew Golden. Offensive line plus 105. Receiver plus 420. Tight end plus 550. Safety 7-1. I think receiver or tight end makes sense. I mean, they need either, and those are decent odds. Although they are really hurting for offensive line. Golden over 17.5 is minus 141. And the Golden first receiver is plus 150. Doesn't seem like great odds, but it could happen. Anything you're betting on here?
I mean, firstly, it's worth noting that it's really hard to slot Matthew Golden in anywhere because the odds suggest that he's going to go somewhere in this range. And yet no team is favored to take a wide receiver. So it's really, and that happens when we mock as well. It's really hard to mock wide receivers to teams. You'll note that nowhere else in this bookie's mock do you see a wide receiver go because no teams are favored to take wide receivers. So it is really tough to fit anyone in. I do think O-line's by far the more likely option, but you can't bet it at those odds. Likewise, I think Golden's probably going to go outside the top 17, but those odds are so terrible, I can't bet it.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, so Buccaneers, Jihad Campbell. The defensive line, though, is the favorite, plus 155. Linebacker, plus 280. Offensive line, 5-1. Cornerback, 5-1. Campbell, over 15.5 is minus 233. That's 15.5 is the Atlanta pick, which makes sense. Linebacker, plus 280 seems okay. I mean, this is not Intel-based, but I think that makes a lot of sense. And plus 280 is okay. Have you bet this?
Yeah, I have, and I got slightly better odds. I found it at plus 400 quite a while ago, so I put quite a bit on it then. But that's obviously come in now as we're getting a lot of people backing Campbell to go there.
Okay. Denver picks Omarion Hampton. Running back is the favorite, plus 175. No surprise there. Receiver, though, plus 340. Better number there than I would have thought. The defensive line, plus 420. Offensive line, 6.5 to 1. Marion Hampton, over 19.5, minus 116. Man, I would have I would have thought that would be just better odds there. Minus I thought like worse odds, I guess. I have him in the second round. But I do think that there's a good chance he goes 20 or somewhere at the end of round one, just given that like there's a lack of talent. I don't know. In my mind, I'm like, well, to take these running backs in the first round, I just don't agree with it. But I guess other teams, I feel like they will, just because of what people saw with Saquon Barkley last year and Derrick Henry, just like the running game being revived of sorts. So I think receiver plus 340 is okay. I know we talked about it, but like, what if McMillan falls here? Like, I think that he would be the pick. So I think that's worth a shot. Not that I'm dying to bet it though.
Yeah, it's the ones not listed there that I think are interesting. Tight ends, a possibility. You can get it around plus 1,000 sort of region. I think that's a little bit interesting. You can get safety at like plus 2,600 or something along those lines. And I think that's really long, given this is the sort of range where I think Emanuari, maybe even Starks will go. And I feel like it's kind of a need for a team that doesn't really have any set needs. I feel like if their plan is to go best player available, I could easily imagine a situation where they see one of the safeties as the best player available.
That's good odds if you think a safety is going to be the pick. 26-1 seems great. All right, so Steelers, Jackson Dart, because Shador is off the board. Defensive line plus 220, quarterback plus 340, cornerback plus 450, offensive line 5-1, Dart under 24.5 minus 200, quarterbacks over 2.5 minus 294 in the first round. All right, a couple of things here. Charlie Campbell reported that they didn't like Jackson Dart in the first round. Now that maybe second round is a possibility for him, but he said that they didn't view him in the first round. So I think you could take that out. And so if Dart is under 24.5, that means his over has to be like what, plus 160. That seems pretty good to me. I don't think he's going in the top 24. I don't even think Shador Sanders is going in the top 24 necessarily. So that seems like a great number. Quarterbacks over 2.5, so the under 2.5. I would think that's the best way to go. As far as the Steelers are concerned, I think defensive line is most likely, and plus the 20 is okay. I don't know about anything else here. So what do you think about these?
I mean, this morning I bet quarterbacks under 2.5 at plus 260, which seemed pretty darn good because I think there's a real possibility Dart falls out and potentially even Sanders does.
Mm-hmm.
I find these odds really strange. Obviously, that's the justification for why I put Dart in there, but I would definitely take the other side of both of those. I think D-line's by far the most likely, as you saw from my mock. I think it is possible that they take quarterback if Sanders falls and they decide that they like him here, but I would be really surprised if Dart ends up this high.
Yeah, me too. All right, so Colson Loveland to the Chargers, defensive lineman plus 130, tight end is 5-1, offensive line plus 550, receiver 6-1. Loveland over 19.5 plus 120. That seems okay. Tight end 5-1's interesting. Jim Harbaugh doesn't strike me as someone who's like dying to take a tight end, but I mean Loveland kind of does what he wants, and it's a big need. Plus, like as I said before, this draft class isn't that great, so he just might be like, okay, just let's get our tight ends basically second round at this point. So, I think tight end 5-1's okay. Not in love with it, but that's what I would bet here if I had to bet anything.
What do you think about the Loveland over 19.5? I know it's not great odds, but I haven't seen him mocked inside the top 19 often. There's not really that many slots for him there.
It's just 18 to Seattle, right? I mean, like that's like the one spot that could take him. Colts 14, probably not, but it's like it wouldn't shock me if that happened. Outside of that, Atlanta's not going to take him. They have Pitts. 16 Cardinals. They have McBride. 17 Bengals. They just re-signed Gesicki. I think they go defense. And we talked about 18 Buccaneers. 19 they have Kate Otten. Although they could take a tight end, but probably not. And then I think over 19.5 makes a lot of sense as long as you don't think Seattle's going to take a tight end. They're not going to take him, you know?
Yeah, and you can always put a little bit on Seattle if you're really worried about it because the odds are plus 550 for them.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I like that. So, yeah, it's a good call. All right, so Packers, Eric Harmon, defensive lineman's the favorite, plus 120, cornerback plus 190, offensive line 5-1, and receiver plus 650. Harmon first round is also minus 1,000. Interesting. It's kind of the same as Zabel. I mean, it makes sense that Harmon would be. I would have made like Harmon like minus 500, minus 400, minus 1,000 seems a little high, but it's okay. Anyway, I don't see anything exciting here. Like we talked about, like receiver plus 650. If Golden falls to them or McMillan, yeah, sure, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But they could trade up if they love those guys. They could trade up. But I think defense line should be the favorite though.
I agree. I think defensive line is the most likely. I have seen some places where you can get cornerback at like plus 250 odd. I don't know if you can get any over there like that. I think that becomes interesting there because I do think that is a real viable possibility. But I'm not excited to bet it even if it is.
Yeah. Vikings, Nick Emanwari, cornerback plus 170, safety 3-1, offensive lineman 3 plus 340, defense line plus 470. I like the defense line plus 470 because they've met with some defensive linemen. They brought him in for the top 30 visits. Derek Carman, for example, they brought him in. We have a prospect visits tracker on the site. So if you guys haven't seen that, definitely check it out. Emanwari for safety minus 131 seems like pretty safe. Not great odds, but seems like that should hit. Yeah, defensive line plus 470 is worth a shot. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where it's really interesting. I've also seen that just within the last 24 hours with some sites, the odds have drifted so much for cornerback that safety is now considered the more likely pick. That's insane to me. I don't think any team should be favored to take a safety in the first round. That seems crazy. But D-line is definitely where I'd be putting my money because I do feel like they still have a hole there.
Yeah, agreed. John Sanders says quarterback class reminds me a bit of the 2019 one. That was Kyler Murray first overall, and then with Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins going after that. So, yeah, that's true. I mean, you're going to have quarterback number one. You're going to have two guys fall. Or you're going to have teams maybe reach for them, although some people would say it's not a reach for Sanders. But, yeah. Okay, so let's get to the final slide here. Texans, Josh Simmons, offensive line minus 230. That's a big favorite. Receiver plus 380. What is that? EL?
Also,
EL?
That's DL. That's DL. I just can't spell.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay. Plus 550. I was like, what's EL? Running back is 22-1. Simmons first round minus 154. I probably think he's first round. I wouldn't bet it though because the torn patellar tendon teams just might be terrified of that. But yeah, it makes sense that offensive line's a heavy favorite. They met with offensive linemen. They brought him in. Josh Connolly just came in. I think he's a likely pick for them. They really need help there. But yeah, I mean, you had defensive line plus 550. So have you bet that one?
I did, but it was back at plus 1,000 at the time. So that's come in a little bit. But I find it strange that that's so far out because I still think that's a viable possibility for them.
Mm-hmm. John asking me, is it easier to run draft website now or back when they had the draft starting Saturday afternoon? I don't think there's much of a change. I really don't. I think that it's been the same for me. I've always written up grades for every pick, and my process hasn't changed. I will say I guess if I had to say it now, like I think it's easier now because we have 3 days instead of 2, whereas like you had 2 very long days, whereas like now it's like shorter. It's like because the Saturday and Sundays were like 7 or 8 hours each, whereas like that's only Sunday now. We're like the first 2 days are like 4 hours, 5 hours, so they kind of broken it up. I really think the NFL should go to 4 days. They should go Thursday. Thursday should be round 1 only. Friday should only be round 2. Just make that a huge deal. And then make Saturday a big deal too. Like make it round 3, round 4. Like it really accentuate round 3. Like talk about all the successes you've seen in round 3. You can bring out like Russell Wilson, for example. Like there's so many great round 3 picks. Like they make that a big event. And then make Sunday like the throwaway. Make rounds 5 through 7. Like the draft geeks are going to watch that. If I weren't running the site, I'd be watching that. So they make like 3 big event days, like the Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, all prime time. I think people would. You'd have some complaints like 4 days, like that, but like I think eventually people would like that a lot more. And it would make life easier for me because fewer picks and it would make better traffic for me because the 3 days of the draft are the best days of traffic for the site. So selfishly, I love it, but I do think it is a good idea. What do you think?
I would personally enjoy it if we were on the Saturday a lot more, because currently the Thursday night is my Friday morning, and I have a job. So
I gotta ask, are you gonna take off? You have to take off, right?
Look, if anyone at my work is watching, definitely not. I will definitely not be sick on that day. But also this year, very conveniently, it's public holiday in Australia on that
Cool.
Friday. So this year it worked perfectly for me. But I have tried to track it while at work at the past. It just doesn't work. I basically I can't make it happen. I've had certain classes where I've used it as a probability lesson and stuff to talk about it. But for the most part, it's just really inconvenient timing for me.
What's the holiday?
It's called Anzac Day, so it's basically where we remember Australian and New Zealand members of our armed forces.
Oh, okay, it's nice. Well, it's good timing, so yeah, it's good that you don't have to stress out about that. Is it always this last Friday in April, or
it's always April 25th? So it's always been April 25th. Yeah,
okay.
That's a significant day. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right, so we move on. Rams, Jahdae Barron, offensive line plus 210, cornerback plus 240, tight end plus 650, linebacker plus 750. Where is receiver? Barron, second cornerback plus 135. That's without Hunter. That could go up in the air. There's so many different opinions on the second cornerback. Where is receiver though?
It's like plus 850.
Okay, it's strange. I think linebacker makes sense if Campbell falls. I mean, look, they could definitely take the other positions. I think receiver is great value, 80-1, right? I think.
Yeah, I've bet receiver a couple of times because the odds keep on drifting, which is just absolutely wild to me. So certainly you can get receiver. Even cornerback, I don't mind there. I managed to find cornerback at plus 320 today, which I thought was pretty solid. So I took that too. But the wide receiver is where I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Ravens, Shamar Stewart, defensive line plus 115, offensive line plus 320, cornerback plus 450, safety 6-1. Shamar Stewart, second defensive lineman, is 14-1. So you'd have to avoid Kenneth Grant after Mason Graham. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, I have Shamar Stewart going 9, like I said, so that would be a nice bet at 14-1. But I was more of I don't know what's among the Saints, but. Are you betting anything here?
I don't. I think I've generally avoided the Ravens. I even had a look through this morning trying to see if there's anything that jumped out to me. I did bet edge at one stage before it went out so far. It was closer to a plus 160 at one stage, so I put a little bit on them, but for me, it's just you don't know what the Ravens are going to do. If anything, you should just bet whatever has the longest odds, because they're going to pick up a random player from some position and wherever the value is going to lie. So you might as well just take a punt on that.
I mean, they're another team that could take Starks 6-1. I mean, they had to move they had to move players around, and so they had problems in the secondary. So if they draft Starks, I think that would make things easier for them. So yeah, I mean, that could happen. Anyway, Lions, Donovan Ziriku here. Defensive Lions minus 170. Sucks, those odds aren't that great. I think defensive line's a very strong possibility. Offensive line plus 210. Quarterback 10-1. They took one last year. Receiver 20-1. If one of the receivers falls to them inexplicably, I think that could happen, but I don't see that happening though. Ziriku first round's minus 200. Okay. Interesting. Those odds are that high. I as I said, I'm very sad to see minus 170 for defensive line. I think that's a pretty strong possibility.
Yeah, I think the Lions, you just plain can't bet because it's so likely to happen, but it's not so locked in that you can feel good about it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, the Lions, we think they're going to take an edge rusher. What if someone very unexpected falls to them? They can take them. So anyway, Redskins taking Pierce, defensive line plus 170, offensive line plus 250, cornerback plus 350, safety 9-1. Pierce first round minus 110. Sounds about right about coin flip. I've been taking a receiver, I think. Let me check. Maybe that may not be the case. Yeah, I haven't taken a receiver. Do you have the number on them for taking a receiver?
Give me 2 seconds. I will get it.
Okay. And I think receiver, I mean, they traded for Deebo Samuel. And obviously, like, it's not as strong of a need anymore. But I mean, Samuel is getting up there in age. Like, I don't think this is like a long-term plan for them or anything. Like, they need a receiver for the long term. They have McLaurin, obviously, and they have Samuel. But after that, I mean, they have Noah Brown, I guess. So, like, they need a number 3 receiver / number 2 for the future. So do you have that number?
Yeah, I could find them at plus 1050.
Okay. I like that. I think that's really good value. I might consider betting that.
Okay. I have already bet that, and when I bet it, I found it at like plus 1400 or something along those lines, like a week or so ago. It was crazy.
That's a great number. Okay, Bills, Walter Nolan, defensive line -105, cornerback +330, safety 6-1. We talked about Stark's possibility. Offensive line 7-1. Nolan first round is -222. Okay, it seems about right. Like I said, I had trouble placing him. Anything of note here? Have you bet anything?
No, I don't think there's anything that really jumps out to me about the Bills. Like a while back, I bet cornerback when the odds were longer, but I don't feel particularly good about that. A lot of people are mocking them, Maxwell Hairston. Like, I've seen that in like nearly 50% of the mocks I follow at one stage had Hairston going here, which I think is really interesting. I don't know what that's about.
I think I have Hairston going here, if I believe. Yeah, I have Maxwell Hairston going here.
That's why I asked the question. I was like, it seems like it's a real thing. So,
yeah, I mean, they need a cornerback outside of last year they have Christian Benford, and I mean he got hurt in the AFC Championship, so we saw like that get exposed. They had no depth there. But I mean, really, outside of Benford on the outside, I mean, they have Taron Johnson in the slot, but outside cornerback, outside of Benford, they really don't have anything. And like, you know, they were torched by Mahomes in the AFC Championship. They have to find ways to stop him. So I think Harrison fits well for them. They like the cornerbacks who tackle well. So I just think it's a good fit. John says, my gut tells me D line with Bean, as he always harps about building the line first. Yeah, makes sense. A good defensive line too. It's just like another reason for Harrison here is like I wanted to have him in the first round, and I was trying to find a spot for him too. That was something else. So
makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Chiefs, Josh Connerly, offensive line +105, defensive line +155. Andy Reid addressing the trenches as always. Cornerback +850, running back 15-1. Clyde Edwards-Helaire did not work out. He was the first round pick for them. So I don't know if they go back to running back. I don't see it, especially Pacheco. I mean, he got hurt last year. It just wasn't the same. So I think he's going to rebound. I actually think in best ball, he's going like 8th round, which I think is like way too late. I think it's a great value. But yeah, I mean, offensive line makes so much sense. But the number's not great. So have you bet anything?
Yeah, the numbers were a little bit further out at one stage. At one stage, I found like insane odds on tight ends, like +2,000 and something or other. So I put something on that because it feels like it's possible they take a Kelsey replacement. But for the most part, I've avoided them. I put a little bit on O-line at +100 and something small, but I just feel like you can't really rely on what's going to happen this late in the draft because there's going to be some possibility of value picks or the possibility of them trading back.
Yeah, it's very true. All right, so Eagles, Malachi Starks to be the pick here. Safety is 5-1. You said defensive line the favorite +105. Offensive line +320. Cornerback +850, and Starks is the pick here because it says first round is -400. Yeah, it's a high number for Starks. So he would be what 3-1 to not go first round.
I couldn't find not going first round, but I did find the odds of like under 1.5 safeties was like +300 and something or other.
Sure. Yeah, it's basically the same thing. So, yeah, I think that's interesting. I don't love it, but I can understand. So defensive line +105, offensive line +320. I think that those two are pretty safe for the Eagles. They always address the trenches. So that would be a direction I would go. I said this before, like Lane Johnson is getting up there in age. The Eagles are a team that draft for the future. Like we saw them take we saw Jordan Davis, we saw them taking Jalen Carter when they still had Fletcher Cox. But they knew obviously Fletcher Cox was going to age out of the NFL. They took Nolan Smith when they had Brandon Graham, and they knew that Brandon Graham was going to leave. So like they always have a future on their mind. And Lane Johnson's 35/36. So they have to think that like, okay, he has 2-3 years left. And they did this with their centers too, because they knew Jason Kelsey was going to retire. So they took a couple of interior linemen. So I think that if a decent tackle falls to them, I think they would definitely consider it. So plus 320 seems to make sense, but I do think defense line should be the favorite.
Yeah, totally agree. D-line is where I'll actually mock them in my personal mocks. O-line's possible. I think safety is very unlikely, but it is technically the second lowest odds for safeties among the teams in the right range. So that's why I had Starks going here. But I think D-line and O-line make a lot of sense. There is one more slide, by the way, of just notable acceptance.
Okay. Luke, before we get to that, Luke's saying, is this a new mock? Seeing a different mock on fantasy first down? Yeah, this is a bookie mock. This is based on the odds only. So we did the other mocks. If you want to rewind the show, we went through Ben's like personal mock draft, but this is just based on the odds. Okay, so final slide here. Surprise exclusions. Emeka Egbuka, receiver, first round's -167. Over 28.5 is -115. And first round receivers over 2.5 is -270. I like the over there, but -270 is not good value. So probably going to pass on that. Over 28.5 for Egbuka. Oh man, it's really a coin flip. I feel like you can go 26 like you had to the Rams, or you could go 29-ish or fall in the first round. So I think that's a coin flip as well. First round, yeah. Anything with Egbuka, or we talk about Burden because same position. First round's -120. I think I'd rather bet Burden to go first round, but I don't know. Are you betting any of these receiver ones?
No, and I do think the odds are a little bit too short, but it's also weird that no teams are really considered likely to get a wide receiver, and yet we are expecting, according to the odds, Egbuka and Burden to both end up in the first round somewhere. I think it's highly unlikely we only have 2 wide receivers in the first round, and yet based on the odds, it was just impossible to fit them to any team. There were no teams with even remotely low odds of wide receivers outside the Broncos, so I don't know. It's a weird one where they ended up nowhere in the mock, and yet the odds suggest they should be there somewhere.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's always tricky to fit all the pieces into the puzzle, you know. Yeah. Tyler, and then obviously you're gonna have like one very strange pick, like a Cole Strange pick, you know. Like some team is gonna take a player where like we had him in 4th round. Like what are they doing? You know, it's one of those drafts. I feel like we're gonna see it. Tyler Booker, first round -154. I think that should be higher, but that's fine. First round offensive line over 5.5, -120, -222. So obviously Campbell, Membu, and Calvin Banks. So those are the 3. Zabel is heavily favored, so that's 4. And then you have Connerly's 5. Am I missing anyone?
Simmons.
It was
Simmons.
Sorry,
Josh Simmons.
Yeah, you have Simmons is a possibility. You have Jackson, possibility. Maybe Emory Jones, probably not. So I don't know. I mean, teams really need offensive line help. Wouldn't surprise me if you see an offensive lineman sneak in and be the 6th one. But yeah, I'm not dying to bet this -222 one. No. Based on what Charlie said before with the Colts liking Booker, I think -54 looks good, but that was like a month ago. So we're going to need some more info from Charlie in the coming weeks, and we will have that. Charlie will be on for shows next week and the week after. So we're going to have 2 more episodes of Charlie, and he'll be able to tell us some more stuff to bet on. So yeah, Booker, that might be something I bet on, even though the odds aren't great. Just because like we'll know that the team likes him. So. We'll have to stay tuned, and hopefully by then we get better odds. Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think guards are the kind of players that are going to fall, but even if Booker somehow falls out, there's still 6 other guys that could easily be in there. It's just based on the way the odds work. One of the offensive linemen needed to fall out, and it happened to be Booker based purely on the fact that there weren't really any teams that had O-lineman as a likely pick that also needed an interior O-lineman.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the last one, Harrison, first round is -105. First round cornerbacks under 4.5 is -250. Yeah, it's gonna be tough to fit 5 cornerbacks in here. I mean, we have Hunter, we have Will Johnson, and then we have a bunch of other guys who could go here. We have Harrison, we have Barron, um, any Benjamin Morrison's another guy who could go first round.
Right, Amos.
Yeah, Amos could definitely go first round. Yeah, there's a bunch of guys I just don't know if all of them are going to go first round. Like there are only 32 picks. Like we're talking about, like feel like we talked about like 45 guys already you can go in the first round. So yeah, I under seems safe, but -250 doesn't seem like great odds. So are you looking to bet either one of these?
Not really. I just think it's interesting that it wasn't possible to really fit more than 3 cornerbacks in there, and I thought it strange given the lines at 4.5 that's how it kind of fell out. You'd think that the bookmakers think there'll be at least 4, maybe 5, and yet I couldn't really find which guys to put in there. I do think we'll probably see a 4th guy, but who it's going to be is really hard to predict. I would be very surprised if we see 5 though.
Yeah, Charlie, by the way, is going to have. He actually might have this already on the site. So he's going to have a story. Yeah, so it's actually on the site. It's not linked on the homepage, but it's on one of the graphics, so you can actually like click on it right now. He has a report saying that there's no consensus from teams on who the 3rd cornerback prospect is going to be. So obviously you have Hunter and then Johnson. So real quickly, like names that were popped up were Trey Amos, Jahdae Barron, Benjamin Morrison, guys we mentioned, Harrison. One guy we didn't mention was Azareye'h Thomas. He's I remember him saying that he was going to poll teams around the league to see like who the 3rd cornerback is going to be. It sounds like he's had like a lot of different answers, so we just don't know. So it kind of tells me that some of these guys might get pushed down just because like it doesn't seem like anyone's like super high on anyone outside the first 2.
While we're on cornerbacks, what are your thoughts on Siobhan Revell? Do you think he's a possibility to go like early day 2?
Yeah, I think that he could definitely go early day 2. He is. Where I was see where I have him going. I have him going 71 to the Saints, but he could definitely go 2nd round. He is a big guy. He's athletic, so he's a lot of upside. I think that it's someone that a team could take in the 2nd round. I just probably just couldn't fit him in the 2nd round because I know I've had him in the 2nd round before, but right now I have him 71 to the Saints.
Yeah, so I think that torn ACL will probably hurt, but he felt to me like a kind of player that should be in the 1st round conversation, yet I'm just not seeing it. I assume it's the ACL, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, yeah, I guess that's about it. Yeah, we're at 2 hours, so it's about it. Yeah. So yeah, great doing this with you, Ben. I always love having you on the show. We ran through 2 mock drafts, so that was a lot of fun. So any final thoughts before you head out?
Look, if 2 hours wasn't enough for you, you can always go across my YouTube channel where I went through both of those mocks in detail, and I have another one coming out in the next few days. Most of my stuff's going through my YouTube channel at the moment, but you can also, of course, go check out the website at ffdfantasyfootball.com. If you follow us on Instagram or Twitter, I will answer all of your fantasy questions, your DMs over there. I've got Dynasty rankings up there if you need help with Dynasty stuff as well. But yeah, definitely trying to grow the YouTube channel. We only started it less than 12 months ago, and we're trying to get it going a little bit because a lot of people were asking for it. So definitely go out and watch some videos if Walt's having a night off, and hopefully you'll learn some stuff that's not quite as accurate as the most accurate mocker in the business.
Well, I think Ben's YouTube channel is phenomenal. I listen to his videos all the time. So check out the Fantasy First Down here on YouTube, and also check out his website, ffdfantasyfootball.com. We didn't bring this up, but Ben was one of the. Where did you finish in accuracy? Like in weekly fantasy rankings, you were like top 10 very consistently. Like where'd you finish?
The last 3 years I've been 3rd, 7th, and 11th, I think.
Yeah.
And I was also 11th in mock drafts last year, so I keep coming 11th. It's really annoying. You want to be in top 10. You get all the stuff for top 10, and I keep finishing 11th. It's infuriating.
I think you'll go top 10 this year. Ben's been one of the most accurate weekly fantasy predictors over the years. So definitely check him out for that as well. Thanks guys for watching and listening. Really appreciate it. Thanks especially to John Sanders for the 411 shoot super chat. Thank you so much, Sean. And we have one more comment here. You missed Benjamin Morrison. Yeah, and I mean, yeah. Again, he wasn't brought up in the answers that Charlie got from the team. So I guess teams aren't as high on Benjamin Morrison as one would think. So,
which is interesting because Charlie has him in his first round, so it's surprising you didn't mention it.
I know. Yeah, I wonder if Charlie's going to move him out. Actually, I can tell you right now because Charlie just sent in his mock draft for Monday.
Breaking news!
Breaking news. Yeah. Where does he have Morrison? Let's see. He has he moved Benjamin Morrison down to the second round to Chicago. So that is the one. Oh, and I'll bring this up. He moved Ravel because you asked about him to the first round.
Hey.
So which team you'll have to find out on Monday. But I'm just kidding. He's got the Buffalo. I'm not gonna. No, the rest of Charlie's mock draft will be available on Monday. Actually, early Monday morning. But yeah, I looked through it briefly because it just got sent in a few hours ago. But yeah, I'd say lots of changes in like rounds 2 and 3. First round seems pretty close to what he had before. I think there are about a half a dozen changes, maybe 8 changes, looks like. So it's like a quarter of it. So yeah, so definitely check that out on Monday. But yeah, we're gonna have tons of content on the site as well. We're gonna be back on the show on Saturday with Tom. And then next week, we're going to have a whole slew of shows. So definitely check that out as well. And yeah, Ben, once again, thanks for coming on. Love having you on the show. Always love when you're on holiday because you get to come on the show. It's great.
Look, don't get me wrong. I love being on holidays as well. But I'm definitely looking forward to coming back next week sometime, talking about more mock stuff, going through all the latest stuff. And I'll see if I can put together some more odd stuff as well.
Okay, nice. Yeah, Ben will be on next week as well as Charlie. So it's going to be a fun week next week. But yeah, like I said, we're going to be back on Saturday. So, all right, guys, have a great night, a great start to your weekend. And I will talk to you on Saturday.